One spot at Worlds has already been claimed today. One more will be after this best-of-5 set. My goodness, we already had fireworks in our first set of the day. Plenty of storylines build up before our second set of the day as well. Of course, all the matchups this weekend, all year long, and everything moving forward, powered by our friends over at Alienware. And your games at home can also be powered by Alienware if you head on over to alienware.com. And I've got great news for you. You got a discount code, AWSMITE09, gives you discounts on select Alienware gear. You can play on the same stuff that our pros are playing on this weekend, next weekend, and moving forward as well. So thanks again to Alienware for being with us here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League and during the SMITE World Championships as well. So on to our second best-of-5 of the day we go, and it's a really, really good one. My name is Dolson. Trelly Relly still joins me. In Trelly, we had a really, really exciting 4-game set to start off the day. Back and forth affair between the Titans and the Hounds. Plenty of drama. I imagine we'll have a bit in this one as well.
I mean, that's what I'm hoping for, right? When you got a matchup like this, you got to assume all the wackiness, all the hard plays. I just want all of it in this one set.
That's right. Yeah, just funnel it all into this one. Although then we want some good sets tomorrow as well. Anyway, let's catch up with some of the action that we've seen so far here this weekend. The bracket's filling out quite nicely. We had four best of threes, excuse me, to start off the weekend. But now here in Group A, only one matchup remains. This was the set we just watched, Titans 3-1 over the Eldritch Hounds. So for a spot at Worlds, one best of 5 tomorrow. That's Hounds versus Ravens. One SEC team guaranteed to Worlds. The other, their season will end. And that's the number 1 North American SEC team versus the number 2 EU SEC team. Both teams have looked strong at points this weekend, and one best of 5 separates Hounds and Ravens from going to Worlds or going home. Can't wait for the conclusion of Group A. We are one match behind, however, over in Group B, and that's what we're about to catch up with here in just a moment. Trelly, Oni Warriors versus Hex Mambo. Warriors took care of business against the Shibalba Storm. Hex Mambo did the same against the Solar Scarabs. And a nice best of 5 to send one of these teams to Worlds.
Yeah, and this one's going to be exciting. Every time we even talk about Mambo, I'm always interested. The Oni Warriors, they've been having hot and cold, but this tournament in particular, they've been looking real hot. So I expect this one to be some sparks flying, no doubt.
And similar implications on this one, where the loser, not out of the tournament just yet, they'll go on to tomorrow. Solar Scarabs await in a best of 5. Again, winner of that one goes to Worlds, loser of that one goes home. And so, you know, Trelly, the first round best of 3 matchups that we saw, there's only so much information to take away.
Right.
But up against the Shibalba Storm, at least, I think the Oni Warriors looked very clean. I think Vote had a standout set in that best of 3, put on a very, very good show. And Hex Mambo looked very, very clean as well in their first set of the weekend. And you know, we've talked a lot about the player matchups, and we will talk about them in lane, in game, out of game. Some history between these players as well. To walk you through it, Hindu Man for the pregame interview.
Of all people, it's me. How you doing today, everybody at home? I'm joined by Trixtank from Hex Mambo, the support player, and QvoFred from the Oni Warriors. You two, this is the first time you guys have ever faced off together in a competitive game of Smite, because you've always been on the same team. Trix, I'm coming to you first. What does this game mean to you, and how would it feel taking the spot away from Qvo going to Worlds?
It's kind of ambivalent. I would like to. What is that, a Danish word?
No, I was just surprised you knew such a long word. Your education's got so much better.
I've evolved, okay, but you know, it's a bittersweet kind of thing. I really want to beat his ass and show him what he's lost, you know. But then again, I would also like to see him go. I'd like to see us both go. So hopefully we'll take this one, and then he'll play on Sunday.
Qvo, you will have a chance on Sunday if everything goes to Trix's plan here today. You've already won a world championship, though. One thing that, you know, Trix didn't manage to get done so far in his tenure. He had Paul, was what you just said. Okay. How do you feel about this time round and your chances against Hex Mambo today?
I mean, I love our chances. Lately, we've been playing really good. And honestly, I'm just happy all the EU kids are here, seeing Trix again. It's a little bittersweet to face him off in this round, but at least we have something to fall back on. But I'm going to have to get it done today. I'm going to take him out, and it's going to be quick and swift. That's for sure.
Yeah, we were kind of talking off air as well for you all at home. And Trix, you said you expect this set will go how many games? And what's the result?
3-0 to us. They're going to be super surprised first game, and then Fred is going to be lost in this loss. And, I mean, I'll just roll him around in the second game. And, well, you know what happens when you're 2 up, then it's just free.
Fred, I want to come back to you on that. Obviously, 3-0, you'll get lost in the sauce.
A man can dream.
So before I let you guys go, I've got a bit of trivia for you both. Just to be like interesting to see how you guys. Do you remember what team you guys were both on the last time you played together?
Are we both entering on the same time, or how's it going?
On the same team. Whichever one could I say?
Dignitas for sure.
I mean, that's
Okay, that's an easy one, right? It was what happened in that end?
we got destroyed by dragons, former rivals in the semifinals at Worlds, and then goodbye forever.
Okay, so the real trivia question is, during that last game that you guys played together, what was he playing?
Oh, it could have been anything. He was invisible, I'm sure.
Trix, do you remember what Kivo was playing that set?
Wait, let me give me 1 second. Nesha.
Nope.
Was it 2019?
2019.
He was playing Fafnir, no?
Close, but not exactly right. It was a support guard.
Ymir. Oh, I'm out of...
Do you know what it was?
Xingtan?
Nope, it was Artio.
Artio.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yep.
that makes
You lost an Artio. No real surprise there. Are you playing that today?
Hell yeah. You bet.
Game one?
Yeah. Maybe.
It's on record now, just to be clear. Second of all, what were you playing that game?
Nemesis?
You lost a lot on that too, but no, it wasn't that one.
I mean, I can't remember. The meta was so weird in 2019. It was like,
Oh, yeah, I was still casting.
I mean, it was
Jeez.
playing Boris as well, but probably like an early game character, maybe like Osiris or some stuff.
You fought Cyrus? Nope, it was Pele.
Pele. I mean,
You lost with Pele and Artio.
Yeah.
So 3-0, 3-1. Last thing I'm going to ask you two, knowing each other's playstyle, going into this game, you know him so well, what are you going to exploit about Qvo's playstyle?
I mean, to be fair, like, we actually don't know each other that well, like, in-game anymore. So, like, it's going to be super exciting just to meet each other and see how we play. Because we never played each other either, so we actually have no clue how each other plays. We only played next to each other, so, I mean, I can only exploit him mentally, and I have done that so far.
Yeah, we've seen some clips over time between the two of you. Kivo, same question to you. You've known Trix a long time. Are you going to be as nice about the answer here, or have you got something you can say?
I mean, obviously, it's been a long time since we met each other, even online. So they played the last match a couple of weeks ago in a tournament, and our last matches was a month ago, I think. So there's been a bit of time between the last set we have played. So the preparation is a bit loose, but you just got to show up and do your best, play your play style, and take it from there.
You're too sweet to each other. All right, get out of here. I'm done with you guys. I've still got two more for you, though. It's a bit of a longer interview today. Come on, you two. So not just do we have Kivo and Trix facing off together today, we also have this man and someone who's due in court, I guess, later on. Why are you still in a suit?
I mean, at this point, I think I kind of want to play it every game with this suit, you know?
Is it just because, it's the look thing now? It's like wearing the lucky underwear?
Yeah, well, kind of, but it's also like the Hex Mambo signature, you know? Like for this LAN, for this tournament, it's the thing for our team.
If you make it all the way to Worlds, I think we're going to have to get the rest of the team in suits too now. Do you feel the same?
Some of them are considering buying some suits.
So, coming to you two, similar story to those guys. You guys have played together consistently since the Cyclone days. Today's the first time you guys face off in a long time. Vote, how do you feel about going against Deathwalker?
I've got no worries. The guy's washed, so he's been out of the league for like 3 years now. He's past his prime.
Past your prime, Deathwalker. How do you respond to Vote regarding that situation? Especially because he's a solo lane and you're a carry. Yeah. Realistically, you should be just W king.
I got one question for you, Kinder. Do you know where the nearest, best dry cleaners are?
Why?
Because after this set, it's going to get quite messy, this suit.
Oh, it's going to be a bloody mess. Well, going to you guys real quick, I asked these guys the trivia question too. The last time you've played against each other, do you remember, on the same team, do you remember when that was?
PK, yeah.
Do you remember what happened in that last game?
We lost in quarters.
Was it the quarters? Was it not a little bit later than that? It was. It was the PK set, correct? Do you remember what he was playing during that set?
Well, he said Merlin.
You were right. He was playing Merlin. And do you remember what he was playing that set?
Okay,
Are you going to play Merlin today, by the way?
No joke. We were discussing this earlier. He doesn't even know what he was playing. But I want to say Jingwei.
Correct. Wow, okay, so you're the more intelligent bunch of the other two that were just here earlier. Last question for you. You both know each other pretty well. You've been against each other. What is it about Vo's playstyle you're going to try and abuse today, Death?
Well, I'm already in his head. That goes without saying. The moment I showed up to this land, the moment I showed up with the suit, I'm in his head already. So all I have to do is just look at him in game. You know, just have my character stare at him, and like I don't even have to run at him. He's already scared. He's not even gonna walk up anymore.
Vote, is that going to be the case today? Are you just going to stay away and be really scared the whole time?
And he keeps mentioning the suit, but to me it's just embarrassing. Who wears a suit to play Smite, you know?
He's got a point. Who wears a suit to play Smite?
To be fair, no one. But like, come on, it's cool, no?
But you're making a style choice. Any final thoughts you want to give to each other before you go vote? Final thing for you for Deathwalker?
Just have fun, buddy.
Have fun, Deathwalker.
I'll say what a wise man once said. Engineer, actually, currently. Let the game play and do the talk after.
Let the game play and do the talk after. That's it from these two. They're going to get back and get set up for the game. We'll get back to the desk with Dave and Trelly.
You know, lots of competition, lots of heavy words towards one another. You know what I'm predicting though, Trelly? I'm predicting like late game, you know, Deathwalker v Vote, and they just refuse to auto attack one another, like they refuse to finish off the kills.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some gamesmanship there. I think we got to talk about the matchup a bit here, Trelly. I think that Oni Warriors are the favored team here in this one, though Hex Mambo raised some eyebrows earlier on in the weekend. This is an awkward question, and I'm prefacing this. I already know that it's an awkward question, but it makes sense in my head, which is usually not a good sign.
I got you.
Do you think this set matters more what Oni Warriors show up or what Hex Mambo shows up? Do you think there's a baseline of either team that is going to just be a good average and one or the other is going to swing things? Which team do you think is the most tumultuous is a better way of phrasing that?
I would say the Oni Warriors have more weight on them to show up,
Sure.
right? If Hex Mambo rolls up, and of course maybe Deathwalker talked a big game, but in reality, the Oni Warriors have been playing at the SPL level. They've been top 4 in the SPL for quite some time, and then maybe had some rough stretches. So I think there's a lot more weighing on them to perform comparatively to Hex Mambo.
A lot more Jing weighing on them. We'll see.
Nope,
Picks and bans for
don't like
game
that.
number 1 about to roll right now. That's funny. Votes like, why was I playing Jing Wei? And what world was I playing that? I don't know. Jing Wei was meta there for a while.
But why was Deathwalker playing Merlin? That's the real question.
Who knows? Who knows what? Yeah, Deathwalker played mid for a little while. Yeah, I don't know. Deathwalker played some funky stuff. Although Merlin mid was it back in the day. Honestly, that's depending on how big the set was. I guess I'm surprised that the players don't remember the picks they were playing. Maybe I'm not surprised. I don't remember what I had for like breakfast 2 days ago, you know? But you would think like Smite World Championship, Grand Finals, in your brain as a player, you'd be able to say, oh, I was playing this pick in game 2 or whatever. Maybe not, though.
I mean, the iconic,
Maybe it's been so long.
The iconic combos I can certainly remember, but in this case, it looks like the Oni Warriors want to try and get that Naja for themselves in the first play position, which does open up. There has not been that tier ban towards Hex Mambo. That's been consistently being taken away from Deathwalker. I'm going to see if that's something they value. I know that free farm in the soul lane is something that Hex Mambo really does enjoy, and since the Amaterasu's gone, that tier would be a close second.
I'm glad you talk about the mental a bit, Trelly, because it does seem like both of those interviews, actually, even though it was 2 different pairs of players, both were effectively the same, whereas the Hex Mambo player convincing the Oni Warriors player that they were in their head, and the Oni Warriors player being like, all right, we're just going to beat you on the battleground. Obviously, I'm not gleaning too much information from those, but I still think that Hex Mambo mentality, not only fun, but interesting to watch. Chronos again. So it's been a bunch of zeros and then one non-zeros Chronos game. It was Snoopy who played it against Hex Mambo earlier on here in the weekend. How does Chronos being on the other team change the Oni Warriors playstyle, do you think? Do you think now you feel like you have an opportunity to funnel some pressure in mid early? Do you think that changes up how they draft?
I'm thinking you have to prioritize some extra burst damage in that case just because you already have Naja. And if your whole game plan is to take up Chronos with Naja and he comes down and gets a rewind off, that fight is lost. Like, he needs to be dying if you're committing a Wind Fire Wheels to that Chronos. So, would not be surprised if Dardez looks to one of these burst mages he's had a lot of success on. I think, we saw the Hera earlier on in the tournament. Maybe not something like that. That's a pick that you pull out when you're feeling very confident. And in this case, you're up against 2 hard carry ADCs, and Hera's not that survivable in a situation like that. So I think Dardez has a few different picks that he could look to go to here. I'm just expecting a bigger influx on some burst here to follow up with the Naja. That's how Naja works anyways, right? Burst damage off of that Windfire Wheels is going to be better than not having it.
Naja plus Guan use, a little bit of burst healing for the Oni Warriors to start off their draft. A little bit more healing for the Oni Warriors early on here. So anti-heal, name of the game for Hex Mambo, at least for the first 3 picks. But you've already got some good initiation if you're the Oni Warriors. Mid lane pick could be very, very strong. If Dardez is able to get, big burst mage to follow up on the Naja, on a Guan Yu stun, on some Cupid lockdown, like the team fight that the Oni Warriors are already bringing. Hex Mambo, honestly, in a similar but slightly different spot here, where they've got both of their carries already locked in, and they need their initiation now.
Wow.
Johnny's Mercury has been talked about plenty, for good reason, and it's going to get talked about a bit more here. The hard carry style of pick for the hard carry jungler. Mambo swinging for the fences in game 1.
Yeah, I think that Johnny has always looked really solid on this Mercury, and it's nice because if you're playing for late game, you want this Chronos online, Zyrhoes wants to fight once he hits level 20. Johnny has the opportunity to just build a lot of movement speed as he does, steal away camps, charge that Sonic Boom, and just ult out. Try and play for that hard carry position as well. You've got 3 different auto attackers here that can really run away with a game if given the opportunity. And that's just their top 3. They still have their front line that they have to draft up here. I expect the Oni Warriors to look towards, they didn't ban the tier early on, so maybe they're not worried about it, but I still think limiting what Deathwalker can do farm-wise is the right call, especially when you've got Mercury, Chronos, and Cern, 3 characters that have no problem not fighting until 20 minutes into the game. They have absolutely no problem just running to farm and not contesting anything. So you want to limit their ability to run away from you and just gather up farm. But it looks like focusing out Trix, saying, hey, you don't get to play that Fafnir, you don't get to facilitate those auto attackers, is more valuable to the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, Fafnir would have been so strong for Hex Mambo here, not only for Cern and Mercury, Chronos later on in the game as well. So big Dardez bands talked about the burst, the follow-up, Scylla, Agni. They both have some of exactly what the Oni Warriors were looking for. Hello, this
There
is
it
a
is.
Trixtank pick that we have not seen in a little while. Nobody has seen the Sobek meta, not for a few weeks, maybe even a few months. Is that a Steelers shirt on Zyrhoes?
There we go. Blitzburg, baby.
Oh my God. Are you a Steelers fan?
Dave, we've had this conversation
Have
4
we?
times. I was born in Pittsburgh, yes.
Oh my God, I'm surrounded.
The day I got here, you said we got a new aggro, and we still have this same conversation every
Well,
time.
you're
we do
more
it.
quiet about it than
Well,
aggro.
yeah,
All right, handheld. All right.
you can't
Oh, I
even
hate
hold it in. Anyways.
Who day? Anyway, let's talk about the drafts a little bit here. Sobek. We were talking about Sobek before the Steelers caught me off guard. They live rent-free in my head. The Sobek pick, does it work here? Why is it out of the meta? Why is it coming into the meta here for Hex Mambo?
The way I see it, Trix doesn't adhere to the SMITE meta, he adheres to his own meta, and his meta is aggression. Trix wants to be in there. He wants to be constantly finding beads. He wants to be invading when he shouldn't. And if Trix is doing that on Sobek, you have to always be watching your positioning. You're hotkeying your beads key. You're waiting, hoping you don't get plucked in, knocked away. It's just an annoying character, and Trix always loves to go to it. This is unexpected, though. I have talked in great deal about how I'm not a big fan of the Deathwalker Mulan, but he has found some opportunity to get aggressive in the solo lane with it. He's found some decent 1v1s. Up against Nika on the Guan Yu, I don't imagine there's going to be any solo kill opportunity, but you still will be able to make the carries' lives miserable. I think it's got a good matchup into the Poseidon and the Cupid. Having that CC immunity to just immune their ults and try and get away from them or chase them down can be valuable, but you can see Mambo's thinking about this one. They recognize there's a lot of cripples on the side of that composition as well, and they don't want to be locked in place.
Yeah, but Deathwalker very strong on this pick. And I think for similar reasons, we might not be seeing
Wow.
the tier get hovered. However, the tier not only hovered, but locked in for Deathwalker. We now get the full 5 for both teams here, Trelly. Some auto attackers, some late game carries for Hex Mambo, to be sure, paired with Sobek and tier. Run me through that composition. What is Hex Mambo's game plan?
I mean, it seems like what I assumed would be the fast track to late game, but Deathwalker is going to have a much harder time running around on tier with the Cupid and the Poseidon. You get one Wing Blade proc, sure, but you're going to be ending up in a cripple field at some point in that game. And it makes Tier's job a lot worse. You can't just blink to the backline and 100-0 Poseidon. He just drops Whirlpool at his feet, builds some CDR, and says, nice try, you can get me next time.
Right.
Cupid can do the same. So I'm imagining the Oni Warriors want to pressure early off of QvoFred on the Naja, try and pull relics. If you get beads for the Naja, you can't Aegis the Kraken, and vice versa. As long as they're following each other around, I think that Dardez and Quvo have plenty of opportunities to try and set up ganks here. It's all going to be about fighting pre-level 20 for the Warriors.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring up Dardez because it feels like between a Naja, a Guan Yu, a Cupid, even an Atlas, there's a lot being funneled to set up for this Kraken. How much weight do you think Dardez carries in this game? Say a Kraken misses. Are there opportunities outside of it for the Oni Warriors?
I mean, to me, that looks like your best follow-up to win Fire Wheels, so...
Well, it's got to be, right?
You can't be missing Krakens, especially...
You can't miss Krakens. You can't do it.
It's your best self-peel option as well. If you're getting targeted by Johnny's Mercury and you're about to get special delivery, you're dropping Whirlpool, you're dropping Kraken, you're saying, get away. Like, I don't want to be crit, I want you at a distance. Kraken's a great tool to use that, but if it gets baited out, then a lot of the team play of the Oni Warriors goes away. Because as I said, you want that burst after the Windfire Wheels. If you don't have Kraken, you're hoping there's follow-up elsewhere. So Dardez has to be on point with where he places those abilities.
Might have to be Vote in that case, and Vote can slowly whittle down some targets. Now Vote, remember, we've only seen the Oni Warriors in a couple of games so far here this weekend. They looked great in the 2 games that we've seen them play. Specifically, Vote went absolutely crazy in the 2-0 win for the Oni Warriors, and that'll be a storyline to follow in Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, potentially Game 4 or 5. Now, I think so much momentum gets built early on here, Trelly. Game 1, setting the stage. Hex Mambo, a team that all year long has been talked about. The next step for the SPL. They've taken games off SPL teams. This is now their toughest task. We'll see if Hex Mambo can strike first, or the Oni Warriors going to dash their dreams in Game 1 with Hindu Man and Mifflin.
Sounded so depressed. It was with me. Thanks very much, Dave. Yes, it is me and Mifflin on the call between the set of Oni Warriors and Hex Mambo. Winner is going to the World Championships. Miff, look at the compositions. How do you feel about these drafts?
See, this is the issue that I had with Hex Mambo during the regular season. I was concerned that drafts like this, which have served them very well during the EU SCC, would struggle against the SPL. It is so late game slanted.
Yep.
If I'm QvoFred right now, I'm thinking to myself, 2 phenomenal targets to run down in the early, and neither one of them can help each other.
And you're looking Chronos, Cernunnos, I'm guessing?
No, I'm looking
No?
Chronos Mercury.
Mercury?
Get active in the jungle,
Okay.
chase out Johnny, make sure he isn't able to tick over to 5 and make it miserable for Nika or Vote in their lanes. Or potentially move in towards Zyrhoes, force Johnny to rotate in. Now you got both of them in the same place. There are certainly avenues in. I'll be keeping my eyes on the Oni Warriors jungler almost throughout the entirety of this game.
Start of the game, you see Neil and Trix just face-checking each other there to protect the purple buff more than anything else and make sure no invades really happen between the two. As we look around the map of the matchups here, Tyr versus Guan Yu, most of the time should be a stalemate lane for the most part there, Miff?
I think so. I mean, Guan Yu, a little bit susceptible, like level 1 through 4.
Yep.
A rotation from Johnny with the help of Deathwalker could really make it difficult for Nika, but once ultimates become available to both, that CC immunity, the sustain starts to build up, both will be moving in towards defense, then you lose a bit of that potential. So we could see something in solo, but it'd have to be in the next 3 minutes.
Well, duo lane at least, we'll see Hex Mambo get a bit of pressure early on with the Cernunnos and Sobek. They will definitely outclear the likes of the Atlas and the Cupid in these early stages. That cripple field, though, that Vote brings to this fray will cause some problems. There's quite a bit of cripple, actually, on this side with that Whirlpool in mid from Dardez here. Do you think there's a lot of pressure on Dardez on this Poseidon pick? The Des was kind of saying that already.
Well, when Kraken is your best follow-up tool, your only real source of consistent burst damage as well, I think you could put some pressure on Dardez to be sure. But Dardez thrives in situations like this, and it's a composition from the Oni Warriors built to facilitate him. It's not just Windfire Wheels to set up for Kraken. You've got NeilMah, the Astrolabe, so good in situations like that. Nika can instant cancel the cavalry charge. Kraken will follow it up every single time. But there's built-in just set up for him up against Zyrhoes. You go into Rewind, Kraken comes out fast enough, you can line it up.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's why we saw some of the bans come the way of Scylla, for example, is another one that's very good at dealing with that. In the early game, though, pressure for the mid lane for Oni Warriors at the moment with that Poseidon and Najar composition. Cuvo now rotating to the right-hand side, and you called this myth moments ago about maybe an early rotation into this lane, but it's not against Nika. It's looking at Deathwalker, who blinks in to the damage of the sash of Deathwalker, but it's not enough to bring down a kill. Deathwalker will live, and Cuvo will limp away, trying not to steal farmers on the left-hand side. Vote forced to dash away after the pluck from Trixtank. Trixtank now plucked and picked up into Vote there. Nothing much more to scream about there, but Cuvo back on the right-hand side as Deathwalker and Dzoni are trying to get some pressure back on this lane. Sash onto Deathwalker connects, and Deathwalker will limp back towards his tier 1 tower.
One of the strengths that's here is that CC doesn't necessarily work so well against him. You are limited in how long it can apply, and DR stacks with it as well, so Deathwalker not so concerned about that situation. It is worth noting, I didn't realize until now, the relic disparity between Deathwalker and Nika.
Yeah.
It's blinking first slot for Deathwalker. It tells me he wants to get involved in that mid 3v3 a little bit more so. Could alleviate some of those woes I was talking about Chronos and Mercury not exactly having the fight in them, at least in the early game. Deathwalker, if he is there, should be able to help out a bit, whereas Nika, teleporting first slot. Upgrade that to a heroic early on, could look towards Gold Fury, which is one way to force those fights up against things like Chronos. If he's going to sit in his tower, farm up, go for the multi-stack build that he's been doing all week so far, you can force him to rotate into a fight by establishing pressure and generating threat around these POIs.
Yeah, that's true. And on the right side too, I mean, with that teleport advantage, hold that 4 Zyrhoes in mid, has to beads to try and avoid some of the damage. Not level 5 for the rewind yet, but the beads consumed for the Kraken. Not the worst case scenario for Oni Warriors there, even though they don't find the kill. But Zyrhoes now having his rewind available means they'll probably need a bit more to bring him down.
I don't know, just connect the Sash. If he's not rewinding Sash, Windfire Wheels is confirmed. So
good point.
Dardez could have the follow-up just on damage alone from the first ability or the Whirlpool. Don't necessarily need the Kraken this early on. Could be a concern for him. I think Zero's going to play very safe going forward.
You were talking about relics, and you can just see Nika did go back to base momentarily and get the teleport, and has upgraded the teleport all the way already. Is that a huge sign for you if it's going all the way up that quick?
I don't think it's not all the way just yet. He just got the cooldown back. That's a tier 2 teleport.
Oh, it looks like 3 to me. There's a 3 dots there.
I know. That's
these
design.
spectator issues. I'm too old these days.
Got to talk to Aggro about it.
I mean, jeez. God, have you seen Maui? Ridiculous.
Yes.
Too good.
5 pools.
So good it's banned the whole time. Well, it should be anyway.
I agree.
Alongside Ishtar. In this one, though, no kills just yet. And no surprises there's no kills just yet, because this is a very EU endeavor between two teams made up majority of European players. And the playstyle of Mambo really is lean into that late game, get their carries online. The real question is, how much of a clock are the Warriors really on this game?
A significant one. It's Chronos, who is a clock on his own, and Mercury as well. Dzoni, very capable of dominating the map, but doesn't necessarily need to do it. If they get to the late game, Hex Mambo, from an even state, I mean, that is awful for the Oni Warriors. Both of them generating so much threat would split the attention of the Oni Warriors dive. If Nika has to think about, do I want to deal with Zyrhoes? Do I want to deal with Dzoni? That mental stack starts to add up. You only have the one Kraken for follow-up on these CCs as well. Could be that if Hex Mambo can keep instilling this slow pace, that the Oni Warriors will feel forced to take a fight from a more early standpoint or even a more even standpoint as well. I think Gold Fury really one of your best bets, but as of now, dual lane has been holding their own very well for Hex Mambo. A very strong lane to maybe control some of that pressure the Oni Warriors would like to play through thanks to that Cupid and Atlas. I'll be keeping my eyes on it, but as of now, the pace certainly favoring Mambo.
First couple of bases coming through, the first real bases of the game coming through. Book of Thoth now online for Dardez, already stacking away in that mid lane. Same can be said for Echrome in that right-hand side so far. Had a bit of pressure earlier than Vote, so has his Devour's Gauntlets online and will pick up that wave, giving him a bit of an advantage there. Meanwhile, across the map, Breastplate of Valor now picked up for Nika too, so that cooldown reduction favored in this game. Was a little talk on the desk about some healing in this game. Sure, Guan Yu has it naturally, but Vote and QvoFred provide a little bit. Do you expect a lot of anti-heal worries this game? Is it a really big thing to focus on so far?
I think you'll definitely itemize towards it, not just because anti-heal pretty strong as a stat line, but all the anti-heal items are also just great stat sticks.
Yeah, true.
But Ankh, I'm not so sure you're so worried about it.
Blink from Trix into a pluck attempt onto NeilMah. No one was really in the area to get a kill there. Johnny's on a potential rotation over here as Then Chrome uses his ultimate too. A lot of pressure on Neils. It didn't really amount to anything.
No, Hex Mambo, they're playing the mental battle. I mean, we heard it in the interview as well. Just trying to scare off their opposition.
Might be a mental battle in mid as Dzoni gets hit by the
Sorry.
sash from Cuvo. Beads consumed, as was the Windfire wheels out of QvoFred. So Beads exchange in the mid lane means that Naja, little bit less likely to go for some ganks for a moment, return to the jungle and start fighting, and maybe Echrome again. Well, sorry, Dzoni again, I should say, didn't miss the sash, but the ring toss secured a few of the camps, and now the pressure is to the right-hand side, blue buff.
Blue buff invade looked at. Dzoni on the rotation in, but it's Deathwalker over the wall. Does confirm his own blue. But what about the chase?
Dzoni is wrapping around the side as the pluck onto QvoFred is good. The Kraken, though, onto Trixtank is even better. And Dardez gets first blood for the Oni Warriors here. Dzoni still hanging around in lane, looking for an avenue if it was there for the ultimate down the lane. But the damage was done. Blue buff was secured safely for Deathwalker there. Not to be said for Trixtank, who takes the first tumble of the game.
Yeah, I didn't think that Trixtank using ultimate in duo would come back and bite him so quickly. Had he had access to lurking in the waters, he's just not worried about that situation. You can work your way out pretty easily. Seemed to me to be a bit of a desync in the decision-making of Hex Mambo. Trixtank says, let's fight, as he's apt to do. Trixtank never shying away from an engagement. Dzoni and Deathwalker say, we already got the blue buff. There's not much to fight over here. Oni Warriors first blood, an easy pickup, but where does it land? On a problem target. Dardez getting a first blood, stacking up that Book of Thoth a bit quicker as well. Should be able to outscale this Chronos throughout the mid game.
Oh yeah.
Just get that slight boost. That's tough stuff.
But the clock is working in Oni's favor for the time being. We've not really touched on the tier pick for Deathwalker, but last tournament we really saw him play that. He made game-changing plays on it, and this is the set to do it on again as Vote gets plucked in by Trixtank there towards Echrome in this duo lane. The Cernunnos Cupid battle, and one we've seen a little bit more of this year. Sash attempt from QvoFred, though, as Deathwalker's on the proxy. Lawbringer's into Nika. Surprise! There's a Guan Yu, but is there enough damage to bring him down? The cavalry charge used to keep the pace going, but the stun did not connect.
Wow.
Neither does the sash. And Deathwalker just jukes himself around, walks away, relatively unscathed.
I can't believe not a single stun connects with them there. Hex Mambo, they've got attention on the Oni Warriors on right, so Gold Fury under threat.
Trying to burst it down there before Vote and the Poseidon can get there too. Fields of Love
It's
dropped
pulled.
by Vote, and Vote holds the Gold Fury. Very risky. Warriors get it. I think that was a whirlpool out of the Poseidon there. Dardez hits the Kraken on Trixtank. Not enough damage to speak of, though, to bring him down as Zyrhoes now surrounded. Sonic Boom from Dzoni comes on through, trying to rip to the back line. QvoFred on the front trying to get towards Zyrhoes, who escapes with his life. Everybody survives other than the Gold Fury, which, honestly, I thought Onis were making a bad mistake by continuing to hold that, but they did secure the Fury.
Pulled away from Hex Mambo, secure it, and survive. Had Dzoni not hit, I believe, 3 with Sonic Boom, things go much worse there for Hex Mambo as well. But take a peek at the Relic landscape. It is a graveyard for both of these teams. One team's got better setup and follow-up at this portion of the game. I think Oni Warriors not only take a win in the fight, but they take a win in the next couple of minutes as well, so long as QvoFred can find somebody with these Windfire wheels.
Yeah, it definitely looked like Hex Mambo saw the base out of Dardez in mid lane there and went, hey, we can go gold while the Kraken's not available, and did rotate in, but Vote, NeilMah were on scene in good enough time to cause a problem for them, and Hex Mambo make a small mistake there that ends up going punished and against them in the Warriors' favor.
But with this type of composition, a 1,000 gold lead, not something you're concerned about just yet. Acceptable losses.
Yeah.
If you're scaling this hard in the late game, I'm thinking 3-4K 20 minutes in, you're still not so concerned. You just got to keep it light. Don't let the Oni Warriors continue to push their lead. Unfortunately for Hex Mambo, the Warriors could just rotate over towards Pyro. Because Poseidon is essentially a pseudo auto attacker out of mid, you've got the burn potential to just deal with that objective, and you've got best secure on map with Kraken. The Oni Warriors, if they so choose, could try and keep up their pressure, and I think they'd be right to do it.
Interesting there in mid lane for Dardez as he hits level 12, gets his secondary relic online, the first player to hit level 12 so far. Opted for the Shell here instead of maybe the Aegis we may have expected to see. Do you think that's going to be more influential for him this game? Why do you think he's gone there?
Just so he can continue dealing damage while immuning a bit of it, I suppose. But as the game goes on, how the damage starts to line up from Hex Mambo, Aegis would help out a whole lot. Eventually, Zyrhoes is just going to pick up Poly and deal 1,000 damage with an auto attack. And Shell will help a bit. It'll help a little bit with that, but thinking you might want Aegis.
This grouping from Onis, though, smells like they might be looking for this Pyromancer. Dardez going to pull it. NeilMah and QvoFred alongside. Trix and Zero seems to know what's going on, but Dzoni and his speed buff right now don't think they're going to be able to do much to stop this at the end. Onis get it as the blink comes in from Trixtank. Pluck off the mark. Has to lurk in the waters to get himself some CC immunity. Still looking for something, though. Here is Zyrhoes from mid. Needs to watch out for Vote, who's made a rotation from the duo lane. NeilMah can't connect, but the rewind is forced thanks to the Fields of Love. And where is Zyrhoes now? Well, he's hit by a sash. He's hit by a Windfire Wheels, and on landing, there's a Whirlpool and a man on a horse waiting for him. Dardez credited with a kill.
The Oni Warriors just outpacing on maps so well. Every single engagement dictated by the SPL veterans. You want to play around gold? We will. You want to go ahead and go for the Pyromancer? They're there. And Hex Mambo have not got the resources just yet to start fighting back in. Some significant power spikes have been hit. Rage for Dzoni means he could just sneaky land 2 crits and he'll remove someone from the map. As of now, it still is the Oni Warriors, who have done all they can throughout the early. Hex Mambo will get a slight reprieve over the next couple of minutes. Can't exactly force a tower, and
will they get a reprieve, though? Because look at Dardez in this left-hand side, chasing down Chrome, who will escape the Kraken. Right-hand side, you saw Dzoni contesting there up against Qvo in the jungle, too. Still has the Sonic Boom available, but Echrome escapes, does cause him to use his beads and his Aegis, though. So that dual lane a little bit susceptible to further ganks for the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, QvoFred's got great targets all the way across the map, but Echrome, not the slightest of which, I think should be under threat very shortly. We're about a minute out from Gold Fury, and it's about 2 minutes or so on the ultimate, or the Beads Aegis, rather, from Echrome. If you could time it properly, catch them as the Gold Fury is respawning, could be a pretty nice start for the Oni Warriors.
This stage of the game, though, when you look at the Gold Fury pit and it's going to be the Oni Fury coming up, would you rather an Oni Fury at this stage or a Primal be contested over?
I think Oni's probably worth a bit more as of right now. Just get a little bit more pressure on map. You can control the rotations. This early in the game, Oni minion waves, pretty difficult to deal with as well. Primal is when you're getting ready for fire, and it's a bit early for that.
Vote getting aggressive here, looking for a purple buff. We'll need some support from
Johnny.
NeilMah as Trixtank and Echrome try and do battle, but Vote actually gets a good Fields of Love off onto Echrome. Johnny Sonic Boom gets him in range enough to focus onto Vote, but in comes Dardez and QvoFred, and Dardez gets credit for the kill onto Johnny. Echrome can only watch on as his teammate rotates in and dies, and the chase is now on for Echrome. They know he's got no beads, they know he's got no Aegis, and guess what? He's got no life. On landing, Trixtank is waiting, but he can't find the pluck again to pull one into tower. Oni Warriors are starting to pull away with this game.
The Warriors are just grouping way harder. The Hex Mambo, I mean, again, you can't exactly meet them 4-on-4, because your 4 is comprised of 2 late-game scalers, whereas Oni Warriors, they're getting very strong already. Hex Mambo have got to figure out some way to slow down this pace. Already, they've got a defensive line of wards throughout that entire left side jungle, so they're privy to the rotation from the Warriors, and think maybe even that they had an opportunity to fight in. I think it should have been more so about the disengage, because this is what we were worried about.
Well, they do have Kraken available from Dardez here to secure if they need it. A lot of members of Hex Mambo not in the area. Trixtank won't even go in and try and contest. Makes a lot of sense without his lurking in the waters around, and that Oni Fury goes the way of the Oni Warriors as the Trebuchet now pushes down left-hand side. And this has just been slowly meandering into Oni's favor as time's gone on.
I wouldn't even call it slow at this point.
That's true, actually, yeah. For the 2 teams involved, I expected it to be a little bit of a slower endeavor for the first 25.
But this was the win condition of the Oni Warriors.
Yeah.
It's not allowing Hex Mambo to farm up. It's don't let them play their own pace. Drag them into yours. And so far, the Oni Warriors have done a phenomenal job of it. Maybe the best thing is they've desynced the neutral objectives. Generally, in this position, with this style of draft, Hex Mambo would just go to Pyro if the Oni Warriors group up on gold. But that opportunity won't come, and it won't come ever if the Oni Warriors keep on their timers.
We are in a best of 5 here as the beads consumed by Zyrhoes to avoid the ultimate out of QvoFred in mid lane continues. And with the state of the game, with it being a best of 5, game 1, it's a good telltale of where the state of the set is coming into it. But things change in picks and bans relatively quick in series like this. Deathwalker still continuing to try and bully to the back camps and the jungle of Oni Warriors here, but Guan Yu on Nika doing a much better job of staying ahead in levels, even though that's the case.
Just has been able to sit in his lane, TP in if he needs to. Echrome, he's got his relics.
And it was a very good ultimate Sonic Boom onto Vote from Johnny, and Vote's in a ton of trouble here. Not enough to bring him down just yet. Johnny gets the kill, Fields Love connects, followed by the sash out of QvoFred. Blinking from Trixtank, trying to help out his jungler, but Johnny will end up falling down here. Rotation now coming in from Zyrhoes too. Trixtank flicks NeilMah into the waiting clutches of his carries, and it's a 2-for-1 in favor of the Warriors so far.
Zero's finally able to start rotating towards some
Mambo
of these team
so far, I
fights.
should
Or
say.
yeah, Mambo. I think that really is just, we're starting to get closer and closer to that time bomb. We're now level 15 on your Chronos. You've got that Book of Thoth stacked up, a little bit of penetration from Divine Ruin. Wouldn't be surprised to see Zeroes just go immediately into the Polynomicon next. And then all of a sudden, you can actually start playing around your mid laner. It's no longer a liability in the early. Certainly not as strong as Poseidon just yet, but we're starting to get to the point where Zeroes can
Watch
get
out for
involved.
Zyrhoes. He could be in danger here as QvoFred and Dardez combine.
Not like that.
And the sash stops the Aegis from being used there from Zyrhoes and confirms another kill. And I think that's always a pressure point for Hex Mambo to be exploited, is Zyrhoes in the mid lane. He likes to farm up in the early game. He plays relatively safe gods. But if you keep poking him over and over again and forcing him back to base, even technical knockouts really start to hit his mental and cause some problems for Hex Mambo to weather this storm.
I mean, look at the disparity in the mid laners as well. 0-2 and 1 for Zeroes. 3 levels down, not an ideal situation. Dardez 3 levels up at 18 already, 4 of the 6 affected kills. And power spiking quickly. Soul Reaver for even more additional burst. Should be able to deal with that rewind from Zeroes very well. You've got the Staff of Mirrodin as well, so if you're starting the ult or the fights with your Kraken, you're dealing even more damage from the Trident throughout the entirety of the engagement. Zeroes really needs both relics if he wants to survive. If it's just the one, I think the Oni Warriors can work through it.
Yeah, I think that's all for Dardez, as you were saying. It's going to be a bit more impactful onto the tanky targets of that Sobek. And of course, the Tyr when he turns up to the fight, because Tyr doesn't have the greatest matchup against Poseidon because of that Whirlpool combination of just crippling him out, forcing the Fearless is unable to be used. And Zero's being looked at again, pulled into danger. Beads as he was pulled into the air. Cuvo saw it, and Cuvo connects with the Windfire Wheels once more. 160 a hit with Nika there for landing. Another kill onto Zyrhoes, and the Pyromancer could be an option. Meanwhile, Deathwalker trying to keep the pressure rolling
How'd he get
somewhere.
there?
I have no clue. It looks like he just ran over there.
I guess so.
Well, the pigs, I think that's what they're saying too. They're all pinging, saying, hey, Tyr's over there, and look at Oni Warriors. They're going to group up in mid, push a Tyr one
Keep
tower,
going.
realizing they've got an advantage here. Chrome will get the left-hand side. Johnny's still proxy farming the right, looking for a Tier 1 there eventually. But a Tier 2 in mid lane at this stage really makes it difficult for poor old Zyrhoes in mid lane to come up mid and find some farm.
No bastions of safety, not even this tower now. Deathwalker lines up, but can't keep it alive. Now the Oni Warriors on disengage.
Jeez.
I've got a pretty decent fallback target here.
Dardez
You get
is
to the Pyro?
level 19 at quicker than 19 minutes in the game. OG Smite players will know like a level a minute is pretty damn good. It's the best you could get, but at this level at Season 9, it's kind of hard to get that level a minute situation. Dardez has found it here, and it's not coming at a detriment of the rest of his team at all. Maybe a little bit on QvoFred, who's a level down on Johnny in the jungle, but Cuvo's doing a very good job facilitating.
I'm not even certain that it's affected QvoFred in that way. Fred has made a decision to get active on map. It's not like the Shinto stealing Panatom back camps. This is QvoFred saying, hey, let's fight now. I'll sacrifice my farm. Let's get active. And he's done so beautifully. 1-0-6, 100% kill participation. The entirety of this game has rolled through this Naja. I think one level down, sure, it's not great. It doesn't feel great when you press tab, but it does when you look at the top of your screen and realize how ahead you are as an entire unit. The Oni Warriors in a very good position now. But Hex Mambo, they're still in this game. The gold lead hasn't bled entirely out of control. Experience, not so bad either. It'll close up very soon. You only tick to 20 once. A lot of that experience sitting on Dardez.
Gold Fury goes down the way of the Warriors then too, and you mentioned a little bit about kill participation or participation in the game. We've seen Deathwalker around, but he's 0-0-0 so far. He may need to start looking at loosening that tie because they need him to step up in these moments now and maybe help out his team. And they're actually Johnny going to find QvoFred here. Cuvo loses half his health already and the beads on his ultimate defensively. Nika going to try and zone the rest of the team away and body block a little bit as Neil there was support. But both teams starting to group up around the Fire Giant already. Do Hex Mambo go for this? They're setting up for it, Myth.
They could force in at least one. They got the TKO, so best case 5 versus 4 here up against the Oni Warriors. And they've already weakened Cuvo and Nika, both ultimates off. I'm not so certain you could actually pull the fire and leave it up to a coin toss, but face checking it, making sure the Oni Warriors are at least around, pretty valuable on its own. If I'm Hex Mambo, I'm keeping my eyes on QvoFred in particular. No bees, no ultimate. won't have an easy time getting out.
So the dance is going to begin around the FG at 20 minutes in, then QvoFred back from base once more. No beads or ultimate available just yet. Dzoni, meanwhile, will do a bit of split pushing on this left-hand side. He'll want to come to the fight late, and Warriors recognizing this are going to go and commit. Blinking from Deathwalker to the back, looking towards Vote. Fields of Love did a little bit to zone him away as the Fire Giant goes the Oni Warriors' way. Trixtank falls, Deathwalker falls, the tanks are dead, and Warriors can start to march down mid lane.
You can't have Johnny on the left side of the map there. The second the Oni Warriors seem on wave, let's get on fire. Let's go ahead and do it. It's simple from that position. You're already in a lead, so a 5 versus 4 has got to feel great. Now a 5 versus 3 with Fire and Phoenix, I think the Warriors like their odds.
I think a lot of fans coming into this were hoping Oni Warriors would step it up come crunch time at this LAN, and so far they're doing just that. Middle Phoenix now down. Plenty of towers, however, though, still on the rest of the map. A commit to the Titan at this stage, a little bit risky, but plenty of farms still available for them to go around and take and push out these lanes and spend some of this gold. How does Hex Mambo defend? Because honestly, when I'm looking at their composition, they're not great on defense.
No, they're not. It's the curse of non-standard mage. You haven't got the best ability to keep your minion waves out of Phoenix range, so it's more so about finding your fights in the jungle, but it seems Johnny's the one that's been found.
Kivo will say the ring toss will connect and slow him, but the immunity from Johnny will save the day there. And you can say Kivo will, argue he missed the Windfire Wheels intentionally there to set up for the sash afterwards, but Johnny won't find the speed buff, but he will escape with his life. But yeah, like you said, there's plenty of chance for them to, I guess, try and make something happen with a blink from Deathwalker, a Trixtank blink pluck. At the moment, though, Trix has really struggled on those plucks so far this game, in my opinion.
And with beads up on a bunch of targets are coming up soon for the Oni Warriors. I believe it was iRaffer that it said, in the late game, if you're a Sobek and you pluck someone to burn their beads, you die. And it's never a valuable trade. Trixtank at level 15, I mean, he could pluck just about anybody, and they probably won't die just yet. Still waiting on some massive power spikes from key targets on Hex Mambo. In particular, Zyrhoes, we're waiting on a whole lot of penetration. It's been a while. It's going to be a while more until that Charon's coin is finished up. Johnny, though, has some stacks on the Rage. Wind Demon finished up. Serrated Edge for 20%. Could deal with that front line given the opportunity. The Oni Warriors, they still need to execute on these sieges. Even if Hex Mambo haven't got the best composition for it, they still can fight back.
Well, I was going to say, it looked like the Mambo was setting up to defend that tier 2 tower, but with Trixtank returning to base, it was just more of a stance than anything else, as now Warriors continue to march down this left-hand side, have the Trebuchet behind them to just continue to pelt into that Phoenix. And Deathwalker looking for an angle around the back, has been spotted out, though, in the jungle here by Neil and Nika. Deathwalker looking for a blink or a Lawbringer to try and get some of these carries. Dardez or Vote will be the focus, and you can see Vote's positioning there just a little bit further away to make sure if Deathwalker comes in, he can't get both the carries at the same time. They allow the Trebuchet to do a little work, and Oni Warriors surrender and head back looking for the other towers, the pings on the right-hand side of the map.
Surprised to see them back up just then. Dardez and Vote just gain access to their beads in the last 3 seconds. Would have been a pretty decent opportunity to start pushing forward. Perhaps concerned about Johnny's positioning. Haven't quite seen him on map in a good while. Maybe he could have been setting up for a sonic boom there, but instead reset it, keep it back on neutrals. Pyromancer spawning very shortly. You only have about 40 seconds left on your Fire Giant power play as well.
We can say it's methodical but boring, right? We want to see a fight.
I would
right?
love to see it, personally, but why risk it? This is worlds on the line. The Oni Warriors, I think they're right to do it. And now, considering the timing of the Fire Giant respawn, we see this so many times. The Oni Warriors can group up on right, control where Hex Mambo are allowed to stand, where they're allowed to rotate. You definitely want to defend a tier 2 against a no Fire Giant team. Once Hex Mambo 5 stack, you can start maneuvering through the jungle, setting up your defensive wards, and then fall back to the Fire Giants. The Oni Warriors have essentially strangled the map. Hex Mambo, I think, assuming the Warriors were on the right, start to position themselves towards the Fury, but Warriors leave no stone unturned.
Yeah, Trixtank base in there as well as Echrome spells the doom of the Fury in favor of the Oni Warriors here. And the FG now wearing off them. So FG with the next focal point alongside those towers on the right-hand side. Middle lane Phoenix is respawning though, so it's not all doom and gloom for Hex Mambo just yet. They are starting to edge their way towards that maximum level, specifically on Zyrhoes and this Chronos in the mid lane. The items are coming along too, checking on Echrome there. Now has that Silver Branch bow on line 2. So the damage numbers will start to favor Hex Mambo the longer this game goes, if they can find the right fight.
We're still a bit of a ways off from Zyrhoes being at full strength, though. We're waiting on that starter item, 2 levels till he's even allowed to build it, and 6 slot still a ways off as well. So Dardez, advantage insofar as experience. He's been level 20 for what feels like 5 minutes now, as well as already finishing up that Pendulum of the Ages. So a massive power spike for the Poseidon on the other end. Hex Mambo, I think, have to take the fight if they want to keep this Fire Giant out of the Oni Warriors' hands. They never win a coin toss against the Kraken. I even hesitate to call it a coin toss. So instead, it's deal with the front line. And when you look at how Echrome's itemized, he can deal with the front line pretty quick.
Frenzy popped early, in goes Deathwalker, gets the beat down of boat as the field loves drop. The Kraken goes out, but Mambo gets the Fire Giant, a Kraken early again. QvoFred gets his ultimate off on his buddy Trixtank, but the beads blocks it. The good news is Vote has found Echrome, and QvoFred finds Trixtank. Only 2 members of Mambo have the FG, and they are bravely running away as the Warriors will head for this Phoenix in mid lane. Can they end with a 5-stack here against these two? I think they could. They don't have minions though, Myth.
Everybody's so healthy on the Oni Warriors. Phoenix will take a little while. No Fire Giant.
No
but
ultimates up.
Neil's healthy. He could tank this Titan nearly indefinitely.
Warriors are trying to do this pre-30, then they stare at Zyrhoes and Dzoni. Dzoni has that Sonic Boom charge, but what can they do is Zyrhoes gets pulled back in by NeilMah. The Titan is the focal point from the Oni Warriors, and they are going to take game 1 after taking out Dzoni and Zyrhoes at the end. Less than 28 minutes in the game. Easy as pie, says Q as he walks out the booth there with the hand slap.
But when we look at the composition from Hex Mambo, this is something they had done against the Solar Scarabs. This all in on the late game. As that set started to develop, they shifted their strategy, started drafting a little bit more so bridge picks in the jungle, things that can fight in the early to prevent how that game had gone down. The Oni Warriors realized, look, their jungle and mid can't fight us, not for the first 15 minutes. So what did they do? They brought the fight to the red buff. They invaded the purple. They moved in towards Gold Furies. It was really just a pacing issue here. Had the game gone a bit longer, like Hex Mambo's used to, we would have seen the scaling composition, but against the SPL, they'll exploit those early game weaknesses.
So where is the transitional pick that you want to see go then? Is it in the jungle for Dzoni? Is it more in the duo lane to assist? What is the transitional pick if you're going to see Zyrhoes playing that sort of Chronos again?
If we're going to see Zyrhoes on Chronos, I'd like to see something earlier in the jungle. So something that could just run it down, create some space. Something with a Mannequin Scepter could really help out. The Osirises, the Erlongs, even the Lokis to a certain extent, one of Johnny's favorites, could help out a bit in the early. Or Hunbots, literally anything but Mercury. And anything that goes to like level 20 and then says he wants to fight.
Well, we'll see if the Mambo value your opinion there. Are they listening in? We'll find out for game 2 after the break, because this is a best of 5. We'll see you soon.
Oni Warriors continue their run through the SWC group stages with a big win here in game number 1 over Hex Mambo, stifling a bit of what has really worked for Hex Mambo in the past, and it's been momentum-based sets where they're really able to build things up. So a great game 1 win for the Oni Warriors. And I actually have a special a special side event to announce. So we know that we have the SWC group stages right now. We have the SMITE World Championship next weekend, starting on Friday afternoon. On Tuesday night, I am proud to announce the SMITE World Championship Waiting Room 2, Dave's Nappening. So for a little bit of context here, the casters are leaving to Texas on Wednesday morning. The shuttle is going to be leaving from the area where we're currently broadcasting from around 5 a.m. I can't be asked to drive over here at like 4 a.m. So I will be sleeping at the studio on Tuesday night. We'll have a camera set up. I will be tucking in probably around 10:30. And it'll be live right here on twitch.tv / SMITE Game. So feel free to tune in on Tuesday night and get excited for Worlds with me while I attempt to wake up and make the shuttle to the airport on Wednesday morning. Can't wait to see you there. And that's all happening on Tuesday. We've still got at least 2 more games in this set, though, and it's the Oni Warriors and Hex Mambo. And Trelly really to break it down with me. Trelly felt like a good, solid team win there for the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If the Hex Mambo comp worked, I'd be praising it. But I think it's time Zyrhoes hangs up the Chronos. I'm not a big fan of it. It's what? This is the 3rd time we've seen it. First time didn't work out very well. Second time, he went more of a early game slanted build, and it worked out a bit better. This time, still an early game slanted build. It just kind of got rolled over. I'm not blaming this loss on Zyrhoes. It was just a ton of aggression. But if your main goal is to get to 30-plus minutes, and you're just getting ran through in the early, if it's 5-1 at 15 minutes, you got to be looking for more early slanted picks. And I'm thinking the Oni Warriors, they have no problem with that, right? They are looking for, I mean, if you're picking Poseidon and Dardez is having a pop-off performance where he goes just untouched throughout the entirety of this game, you got to find something that's going to be able to dive him. Maybe not just on Zyrhoes, maybe just early pressure throughout the entirety of this comp. I mean, Dzoni on the Mercury tries to just split push the game away, tries to run to farm. That didn't seem to be enough to get the Hex Mambo back in this, so I'm thinking draft it for sure, but I'm going to need more early pressure throughout the entirety of Mambo. Whether it's in duo lane or mid lane or jungle, wherever it is, it needs to come out now.
Now, and remember, Hex Mambo, that's not a tall ask for them. Hex Mambo are a team who, in the past, have won a lot of their games in the EU SEC with some earlier pressure, catching the EU teams off guard. But this is all Oni Warriors all day. I asked, what happens? Say a Kraken misses. What's next up for the Oni Warriors? Well, not many Krakens missed, if any at all, that game. 6-0-6 for Dardez and a 4-0-9 game from QvoFred. Just 1 death apiece for NeilMah and Vote, as Nika also undying. Really felt like once the Oni Warriors grouped, they were able to...
he did 4K. I take it back. I'm blaming Zyrhoes.
All right, you... You really did dance around it. You're like, I don't know, like it looked okay.
I was trying to save face and be like, it wasn't all the Chronos pick, but this is, you can't be getting doubled by your Sobek. Like at that point, you got to think maybe the god itself is an issue.
I don't know. Trixtank Sobek is.
You're right. It is
pretty
aggressive.
Good.
It is aggressive.
One big lurking in the waters. You're piling up the damage.
Dardez did 4 times the Chronos damage though. At that point, you got to think, okay, maybe we need something that gets online a bit earlier. Like maybe even like 2 minutes earlier, but something that doesn't excel at not fighting until level 20.
I'll give Zyrhoes a bit of a bailout in that the Chronos has worked for them earlier this weekend,
yes.
Right? I mean, it's something that this Hex Mambo team has gone towards as a nice, stable pick. Unfortunately, stability needs to be jacked up a bit, I think, here in game number 2. This Hex Mambo team, I call mentally resilient.
Yeah.
A bounce back opportunity here in game 2, but
I
what
think
you want to see is the potential for earlier aggression.
If it worked before, that's all well and good, but if you want to beat the Oni Warriors and stamp your ticket to the SMITE World Championship, you're not sitting back until level 30. You are 30 minutes, level 20. You need to be bringing something else. So I think
you'll be waiting forever.
Right,
for level 30.
Exactly. I think that Zyrhoes excels very well by just farming and running to farm and avoiding fighting. But against the top teams in the SPL, you can't just do your job. You have to stop them from doing their job.
Right.
And I'm thinking Hex Mambo, that should have been the wake-up call. I'm hoping to see a completely different draft for Game 2.
Yeah, Hex Mambo, they're a very talented team. They're a very smart team. One that has constantly made sort of these halftime adjustments if need be. Remember, Solar Scarabs beat Hex Mambo in Game 1 of their set earlier on in the weekend. And Hex Mambo completely changed up how they wanted to play the game and ended up winning Games 2 and Game 3 there in that set. That would be something, by the way. This set far from over. But if Hex Mambo and the Solar Scarabs play tomorrow for one more spot at Worlds, winner goes on, loser goes home, what a story that would be. But Hex Mambo, in their interviews earlier on today, they'd like to get it done right here. Let's go ahead and be done with it and move to Worlds. But the Oni Warriors, they're now the team who have asked the questions. They can run back a similar style composition should they choose. But I think what's good with the Oni Warriors is they have a flexible pool of win conditions in the way they like to draft the game. We'll see what the Oni Warriors bring to the table in Game 2 right here. And picks and bans for Game number 2. Hex Mambo find themselves in the first pick slot. There's your adaptation. Naja going to go ahead and take a seat here. QvoFred looked really good on it. That initial bit of lockdown, even if it wasn't immediately into a Windfire Wheels, that initial bit of lockdown provided some great follow-up. And this will be the first time this weekend, Trelly. It won't be a Naja for QvoFred. 2 against the Storm, and then Game 1 here against Hex Mambo. Is that enough, though? The one Naja ban, do you think that's enough to take away from the Oni Warriors' first game draft, or do you need to take away another piece or two?
I mean, I'm not concerned with really any of those picks were game breaking, right? If your mental is shattered from getting Krakened, like that's going to be the main issue. So I'm thinking their team comp alone was not the problem. It was the pace that the Oni Warriors set. And it looks like Mambo are trying to limit that. They have taken the Naja away when Qvo gets off to a great start, starts pulling relics, starts putting pressure throughout the map. That is a problem. And already loving this from Mambo, right? Ishtar is going to get some great pressure over in duo. It doesn't mean you're going to be playing aggressive in the early, but you have that ability to say, hey, Johnny, don't run around. Don't just power farm away. Look towards this Ishtar. Echrome is going to have pressure in duo, or at the very least should. We can look over towards duo lane.
Yep, Guan Yu. It's good for Nika. I mean, Nika has been so important to this team. And really think, I mean, you look at the journey that the Oni Warriors have taken. Really, really tough year early on in Season 8. They all eventually got here, got things going, really made strides as a team. And Nika's really still been at the forefront of a lot of it, and one of the strongest pieces of this Oni Warriors team. And on the Guan Yu looked fantastic in the first game at a 1-0-9 performance. Very, very difficult to kill off. Oni Warriors are going to give Vote one of his favorite picks as well in the Cernunnos. And Trelly, Ishtar versus Cern, that has been the ADC battle for what feels like a month or so now. And I'll hold this thought, because if this Chronos gets locked in, I'm sure, I don't know if you're going to have anything new to say, but you're going to have something to say about it.
They're thinking about it.
The Fafnir hovered. Remember, the Fafnir got banned away, and they would have loved the Fafnir with that Chronos later in the game. They're thinking about it.
Wow.
They're doing it.
They're
swinging.
Okay, so
Anything, look, you're doing more than 4K damage this game for sure if you're Zyrhoes.
you better hope so. I'm thinking that, I mean, Hex Mambo, they're not dumb, right? They are very keen to say, hey, we have incredible late game pressure with the Fafnir, the Ishtar, and the Chronos. So something is going to have to bridge that gap. It's not the Mercury. That's not going to cut it. I want Johnny and Deathwalker on something that fights at like the second blue buff spawn. I don't even care if they invade the first blue buff. Like, I want something that is brawling in early. If not, we are not going to get to see what full slotted Chronos looks like. We haven't seen it yet, and we're not going to get to see it this game unless they're able to find some way to get to that position.
Right. A lot of it will lie at Johnny's feet then. This is an opportunity for the Oni Warriors now, especially in the second wave of bans, to take away some of that early potential from Johnny. If there are a couple jungle picks that really stand out to the Oni Warriors that Johnny can find that mid-game with, they might choose to take some of that away. Instead, it'll be Xingqian, which would have also felt good. I mean, double Guardian plus Fafnir plus Chronos and Ishtar is a pretty tried and true composition. Maybe minus the Chronos, but plus another magical carry. And we've seen it plenty of times throughout the year this year. A Thor ban towards QvoFred. who again will have to play something other than Naja for the first time in the 4 games we've seen the Oni Warriors play this weekend. And a mid laner for the Oni Warriors still needed as well. Guan Yu, Cern, Atlas here, Trelly. Is this begging for a specific type of mid laner in your opinion?
I mean, it honestly doesn't matter because of all the prot shred the Oni Warriors have already, right? The tanky targets of Mambo are not going to be tanky anymore. Guan's going to be shredding prots. Atlas is going to be shredding prots. It's just going to be someone who can follow up with that, and we know Dardez has such a deep god pool. It's difficult to even begin to ban him out. I mean, at the start of the season, you were thinking of things like the Morgan and the E-set. Now, I mean, Poseidon just ran through the whole team of Mambo, so that could be something they're trying to focus out on. It's not going to be easy to try and play through the mid. I'm imagining Nika on the Guan Yu could be a big threat. It's not easy to gank on Guan Yu because of that cavalry charge, and so far we haven't seen either of the characters that are going to be doing it, so yeah, they do just decide. Ban out QvoFred. Qvo's a little bit easier to lock down comparatively to Dardez. I mean, he could easily whip out a Hunter because of all the shred they already have, or he could still just play one of those mages. Heck, even the Poseidon has a great matchup into the Fafnir, and they could lock it down, and they are going to.
That's smart there, Troy. Yeah, I mean, who knows what Dardez is going to play half the time. He's played Harry, he's played Agni, he's played AMC a few times. Dardez actually played Chronos against the Jade Dragons during Phase 3 playoffs. Want to know how that one did?
I'm guessing amazing because they're here, right?
Yeah, went 0-4
Yeah.
against the Jade Dragons. So not a great history for Chronos in the last couple of games that we've seen it, but Hex Mambo did win with it earlier in the weekend and would love to win here in Game 2. Guarantee at least 4 games. You do not want to have to win 3 straight against the Oni Warriors.
Wow.
All right, now the conversation was sort of mid-game, bridge style of picks, help the team get there.
Okay.
Hebo, Cucullin, does that check that box in your mind?
I love the Cucullin, first of all, because that is exactly what I was asking for. The Hebo is a bit different because it is still that late-game slanted mage. It still definitely gets bullied, but that's a fantastic matchup into Poseidon. I mean, you can really bully the heck out of Poseidon. Same with, like, Pele if you're not building that tanky style of build. Cuvo should get off to a great start and just try and run down Dzoni, but if you are letting Hebo get 5 uncontested, he can find a kill somewhere, right? I mean, you got to think that Nika's going to have to build physical defense. He's going to have to worry about the Cucullin. Then Hebo comes in and says, hey, you've got no magic prod. I'm going to try and one-shot you. That's always going to be an option. But I'm looking towards mid lane. Poseidon has nothing to juke out Water Spout once he's in the air. Crushing Wave should be a guaranteed kill at level 5.
I'm trying to think about Johnny's history on Hebo and in my brain. He's played it once this weekend. It was a game 3 against the Solar Scarabs where he won 4-3-10 in that game. But outside of that, you know, it's usually a lot of these physical carry-style junglers, and he's looked good on them. In the past, it's been the Kalis, the Bakasuras, those types. That's how he really made his name, but has adapted quite nicely to whatever the jungle meta dictates at the time. For Hex Mambo right now, it might be that Hebo. Oni Warriors, they were able to group early, they were able to find pressure, and then just convert that into teamfight win, into objective, and into game. Do you think the 5-stat composition they have here capable of doing the same thing if Hex Mambo are a bit asleep at the wheel?
Oh, absolutely. I think that if QvoFred gets off to a better start in the jungle than Dzoni, he can run away with this game, because what's the one thing you want to do as Pele? Close gap. As Hebo, when you're online, you also want to close gap, but they're going to be butting heads, and with Pele ahead, she just doesn't care. She eats Crushing Wave, Volcanic Lightning chases you down, and if Pele's not online, then the whole composition sort of starts to fumble. Poseidon doesn't look nearly as good if someone else isn't pulling relics for you. So I'm thinking if Hex Mambo just sits back and says, let's see what Cuvo does, that's not going to be a great late game. They definitely should be trying to bring the pressure. Ultimate's online, level 5, that's when they're going to look good.
Do you think holistically, though, I mean, you zoomed in on the, 4.2k damage that Zyrhoes did on the Chronos in the first game. Holistically, do you think a better situation for Zyrhoes now, seeing what the rest of Hex Mambo have drafted?
He's under the same amount of pressure as far as I'm concerned. There's going to be a Kraken coming his way and Pele, but the one shimmering ray of hope is you're not going to be taken up into the sky, landing into a Kraken. You can still time that rewind to try and live through the burst. It's just, you're not going to be able to return that damage for a little bit.
Yeah, look, I mean, time's going to be of the essence, not only for the Chronos, but really Hex Mambo here. So often we talk about in these best-of-5 sets how quickly things can get out of control if you lose both Game 1 and Game 2. Hex Mambo need to avoid it. Oni Warriors, they're playing lights out. We'll see if we're all tied up or the Oni Warriors get a 2-0 lead with Hindu Man and Mifflin.
It was a bit more energetic. Myth, pick some bands then. You were cringing your face up something rotten. What was that about?
Oh, I really didn't think you were going to expose me like this.
Oh,
Look,
yeah, I am the master of exposing people.
It's
well,
not
that
what I
sounded
wanted.
really bad. I don't mean like that, but sure, go on, carry on.
It's not what I wanted out of the jungle. I mean, Habois faster than Mercury. Yes, weird statement again, but it really can get active at level 5. I think Trelly frames it very well.
Yeah.
Until 5, Habois a non-factor. Pele certainly can't find herself in that exact same column.
Sure.
But targets into Dardez could be pretty decent. If you can catch Cuvo in the jungle at around an even state at level 5, it really is a coin toss between the two of them, which could win out on that fight.
And you asked for after game 1, you wanted to see some sort of adaptation to this style from Mambo. Is that the adaptations? Not necessarily you were expecting, because I'm guessing no, but is that sort of the same sort of transitional thing that you're going to be able to find with this Hebo?
It's a half step. It's a half measure in my mind. You can get active a little bit earlier, but you're not exactly looking to run it down as a Habois. You're not exactly creating the infinite amount of space that a standard assassin or warrior could have done out of the jungle. But it will help out a bit, especially around some of those mid-game team fights. Like, what did we seen from Dzoni in game 1? Falls behind a little bit, starts to spend a little bit more time in the jungle, and then split pushed for what, 5-6 minutes?
Yeah.
Habois is not going to do that. Habois is so integral to the engagement of Hex Mambo that it is required for Dzoni to stick around.
Well, there was some other adjustments too. As you can see, we do get the Fafnir for Trixtank this time, as was drafted earlier. Dzoni swings around to the right-hand side early on, looking towards a gank attempt against Nika. But with Nika having lane pressure there, there's not going to be a whole lot to find. Instead, he'll do a bit of lane tax. Meanwhile, QvoFred's doing the same thing in mid lane for Dardez in this matchup. And when I do look at the compositions here, I do feel they've kind of drafted to deal with Dardez a little bit better in some of these team fights, specifically with the Hebo, like Trelly mentioned, and with this Chulainn too.
Yeah, you can immune the Kraken if he tries to drop it on you. Habois not exactly in a situation where it's going to land unless it's Crushing Wave first. And if it's Crushing Wave first, well, it's free game for Dardez out of mid. So I'll be keeping my eyes on Dzoni. Surprised to see this, though. He is stuck around in the soul lane. If I'm Deathwalker right now, I'm miserable because you're just falling behind by rote. Nika's going to have level 3, level 5 first. Not exactly ideal. It's good to get Dzoni farm, but do you really want it?
Is that because Deathwalker's not great in the laning phase at level 1, just with those 2 starter items against the Guan Yu? He's going to get pressured anyway, lose some jungle? No?
I mean, he certainly could. He wasn't getting the better end of the level 1 either, but that's not exactly what you... I think you just suffer through it at that point.
Maybe it's safer for him to farm there than go back in the jungle and maybe meet the Pele.
I suppose.
I'm finding reasons, you know?
We're finding him. Yeah, you don't want to let him get
NeilMah gets hit by the hammer, and straight afterwards the backflip from Echrome on Ishtar. But look at Boat step on up to Echrome and go, no, you're going to box me instead. And Trixtank will get that disarm off. You can see this lane changing backwards now in favor of Mambo. Not only did they manage to get hold of that scroll, but with the Ishtar at around the level 2-3 mark, it's where she can really get dominant lane pressure. And guess who's here on site? Dzoni to help steal away the purple.
You said it in game 1. Ishtar is just too good right now. The pressure is ridiculous. Good luck getting it back from Echrome. Once you get some ganks coming this way, if Echrome maintains this level of confident positioning, QvoFred's got an easy lineup.
I just think Ishtar's solid throughout the game. Whatever stage of the game, the biggest risk Ishtar really has is her escape, which is also technically an engage in some regard. If you misplay it, if you mistime your arrow, for example, which we've seen a few times, that's the only danger sign for her.
Well, that's every god in the game.
That's true.
If you fumble your dash or jump on anybody, you're falling behind.
Yeah, but your backflip escape, like Neith, for example, right? You don't have to make sure you hit it first of all to make sure you can confirm it. That's the kind of takeaway from that. But yeah, relatively solid all throughout. I think Trelly mentioned it. We've seen a lot, or sorry, Dave did. We've seen a lot of this Cernunnos up against this Ishtar, and it really is because, well, I guess Cernunnos can give as good as he gets in this matchup to an extent and close that gap.
Has the ability to utilize that changing the seasons to resustain a bit, deal with that poke potential that Ishtar's got with the lob auto attacks. You have the ability to trade ultimates pretty easily. Ishtar can throw out hers with CC immunity, but if you use Wild Hunt reactively, you can prevent some of that follow-up damage that Ishtar is so good at with that stun. The 1v1, it still does favor Ishtar. I'm not going to mince words.
I feel like it should
strong
be,
there.
yeah.
But the ability to fight back if Vote gets a lead, pretty decent.
Well, one thing in favor of the Mambo are here is if they do the Gold Fury like they did in Game 1, they've got better damage output with Trixtank on this Fafnir. And look at
Neil's
this.
in trouble.
They're trying to go all in on Neil, and the CC chain is beautiful as Trixtank secures not only the stun on landing, the stun after the fact, and the breath is good. In credit, though, Echrome did a lot of work there to allow that to happen, too.
Just perfectly canceling the dash. The second that dash was down from NeilMah, his life was forfeit. The chain CC combo, incredibly clean. Trixtank times that ultimate transformation so well. And it's how Hex Mambo line up that opportunity. It was a zone attempt. They were trying to freeze the wave in front of the Oni Warriors. Neil says, well, I'm going to walk up. I want to get some of that farm, and gets punished for it.
And with that Ishtar, with that Fafnir, Hex Mambo is starting to play this game through the duo lane, cracking out from Dardez on this rotation. Didn't really connect as well as he would hope to on towards Echrome. The beads were consumed, however, as the scroll now being looked at. All the while, QvoFred, however, is going to be on this right-hand side of the map trying to steal away farm. Already taken the blue buff from Deathwalker on that right-hand side. Not too detrimental up against the Chulainn in the grand scheme of things, but it's still farm lost and farm found throughout the map. Mambo in a much better position so far this game.
And even Echrome in losing the beads, it's not the same as Game 1 where you're thinking to yourself, well, if QvoFred shows up, I just die. Wind Fire Wheels is just going to kill me. There still is counterplay potential into the Pele. Use the ultimate to immune the knockup, dash away, you're in a pretty decent position. So Echrome, I think, a little bit more so willing to utilize that beads to steal away these purple buffs, to get some farm, use it as a resource rather than that ripcord safety net.
And the best thing is, because Hex Mambo's dual lane's doing so well, it's turning their attention away from Zyrhoes on the Chronos in mid lane. And that's what Zyrhoes wants. He just wants to farm. He'll see you in the late stages of the game when he's got that poly online, and will end up two-shotting you. QvoFred takes away the right-hand Harpies now over towards the Scorpion as Hex Mambo look towards there, but Nika is in the area, just keeping an eye on what's going on. And Zyrhoes might need to be careful towards mid lane, but he does have Dzoni coming round as Trix and Neil battle over those cups in the jungle.
Nika could be the difference maker in some of these early game fights. Guan Yu still has the ability to really deal with Habois very easily. Chronos as well, that gap close with Cavalry Charge could burn through some of those resources. Again, it would be reliant on QvoFred being there, which we haven't seen too much of him so far this game. But when you look at the itemization of Hex Mambo, it still is incredibly slow-paced. Book of Thoth out of the jungle.
Neil could be in trouble now because all of a sudden he realizes Echrome's here and Dzoni and Zyrhoes on the rotation for him. They saw Neil consume the dash as he went through the red buff, and as soon as they see that, Hex Mambo collapse, and NeilMah gets picked off relatively at ease for Mambo there.
Yeah, Neil's just got to dial it back. The timing of these picks as well, just not ideal. Both times now falls down. Purple spawns, Echrome gets it, and this time
he was just trying to
lose it.
He was just trying to check red buff was up. That's all he was trying to do, and you know.
Why? Are you trying to invade that red buff?
Maybe,
like
maybe after
else
pressure
was.
in mid, but not this time round. Now there's an invade though from Mambo on the red buff. Dardez will turn up to meet Trixtank in the jungle there. Meanwhile, Cuvo and Nika staring at Deathwalker here. They were trying to catch him on a rotation out of the jungle. They won't find it this time. Instead, they have to relieve that pressure as Echrome now has this one-level lead over Vote and around 10 stacks advantage too.
Yeah, good game sense from Deathwalker there. I mean, so many people just get caught out trying to rotate back in the lane.
Would you get caught out there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why are they camping back camps against me? I'm Chulainn, but Deathwalker, a better man than me, able to keep his life afloat there.
It's the suit. It's the suit. He's
The
got a
suit
full
passive?
suit. He's got a full suit on. You don't.
He's wearing a tie. How
You
can
should
he
wear
breathe?
a tie. Are you going to wear a tie, Worlds?
I mean, that's kind of up to you, isn't it?
Is it?
If it's up
Yeah,
to
you
me,
should,
no.
You should wear a tie.
Then there it is.
How about a bow tie?
No, absolutely.
How
That's your thing.
How about a bolo?
I don't think that's anybody's thing. I mean, when in Rome, right? If you're in Texas.
That's
I
a good
guess.
point. It's a perfect time. Okay, get your cowboy hat too. Dardez going to get a hammer out of Trixtank there as Trixtank walks back towards mid lane. NeilMah, 2 levels down at the moment over Trix. Tell a lie. It's 3 right now as Trixtank just hits level 8. And Neil will close it once more. But the 2-level discrepancy on supports is kind of standard. However, at only 8 minutes in, it's pretty detrimental. Cuvo, though, needs to be careful. Trix sniffs out the danger of the jungle. Dzoni can't find the damage as much as he wanted to, but the hammer from Trix really forced the pressure onto Cuvo, who's going to run for his life. Dardez whiffs the air with that Kraken, and his collapse to try and support his teammate that was out of position could be in trouble too. Good old Nika to the rescue won't be enough, though, to keep Dardez alive. And now Nika could be under pressure as Trixtank, and with the rotation from Dzoni coming around the back too, it's Mambo's turn to get a huge lead in this game in the early stages. We might just have a series between these two.
Man, the Warriors, they're playing as a team right now. It's QvoFred caught out, and the entirety of the squad say, you're not getting my jungler.
I got you, buddy.
Dardez runs in. Kraken's for peel, dies for it. Nika tries to peel out for Dardez, dies for it as well.
The domino effect is what I call that more than
That is
anything
so
else.
tough. Hex Mambo, they're running away with it. And now the Habois is your early game bridge. He is now so massively threatening in the early game. Book of Thaw starting to stack up, penetration in the next slot. Dzoni could really start to make some moves on map. Even up against Dardez, we're starting to get to the point where there's one-shot potential. Dzoni, in about one item from now, he's not going to need follow-up. He's not going to need Zyrhoes. He's not going to need Trixtank to finish off some of these kills. It's going to be Water Spout, Crushing Wave, Auto Attack.
GG.
See you next time.
Grayscale. Yep, exactly. Meanwhile, Zyrhoes in mid, though, much better tail of the tape for him this game. Specifically with the lead now over Dardez, but more importantly, 2 of those kills already. I guess he's probably got about the same amount of player damage so far as game 1, but it's a much better position to be in the Chronos pick here. It's 10 minutes now approach. When do you go for the Gold Fury here if you're Mambo, though? That's where you're looking to try and extend the lead, right? You've got the Fafnir anyway, the Hebo in tow. Maybe it's after getting Neil in mid lane after a great knockup.
Man, Neil just can't find his footing in this one. I agree. Yeah, this would be a good time. You don't necessarily need to go for Gold Fury. I think Pyromancer a bit
Are
easier.
you saying that just because they went right? Is that
Well, I'm
why?
saying it because Vote's like alive on left,
Well, it
and
looks
you've
like they're
already
trying
got the pick in mid.
Maybe
Greater
go
Scorpion?
Cheeky Greater Scorpion. They were kind of sniffing out Qvo more than anyone else. You saw Qvo recognize the danger.
We
as
could
did
do
Nika
something,
there.
surely.
Well, they're kind of dancing around, and it's buying time for Neil to come back from base again and get the defense on. Instead, it's relieve all the pressure. Although Trixtank a little bit aggressive in that mid lane. Dardez pathing relatively safely towards the left-hand side there. Trix in mid now hits level 10, equal to the jungle out of Oni Warriors, and that's when it starts to hurt, when the support is equal level to the jungler. It's the greatest time in the world as a support player, let me tell you. But as a jungler, you don't want to be in that spot.
Yeah, Trixtank obviously playing with confidence. When you're willing to leap to stop backs, that's when your Trixtank is making a statement. Nobody's a threat to me right now. You could drop whatever you want. I've got the safety of my ultimate. Cloak of the Ascetic still available as well. Gauntlet of Thieves fully stacked up to the 13 stacks of NeilMah as of now. Oni Warriors are playing without a support. They've got a more mobile, tankier minion on the map right now.
Walking ward.
A walking ward.
One of the best ways you could put that. Scorpion was looked at again there by Trixtank for a second. But there is a ward down for Oni Warriors at their Greater Scorpion for safety. Still no Pyro looked at, but QvoFred might find a bit of action here against Echrome. Vote doing a good job of baiting this fight out. Takes a good trade overall. Echrome's backflip is good, but it's not good enough to get away from Qvo, and that's a defense of the purple buff too, as Qvo makes a good rotation to duo to support Vote, who's had a good tournament so far.
That's the concern of Ishtar. Dzoni maybe could look for a bit more here. Whips the water spout and lets this one go. QvoFred should be able to confirm this one for himself. That's the concern with Ishtar.
Yeah.
You start to build your lead, you're
Get
feeling
confident.
confident, you're winning the 1v1, Vote's locked in his tower. QvoFred takes notice. Ever the veteran can alleviate a bit of that pressure.
Feel kind of bad for Echrome there, because we saw Vote do the same thing on Cupid in the first game, and his boys turned up in seconds and slapped down anyone that turned up. That situation, completely different situation, where Oni Warriors once again collapse and no backup found in sight for Echrome there. No calls of where that jungler was. Ward coverage wasn't great. A little bit of an overextension as the confidence grew. Now Trix transforms again. Looks towards Dardez and Neil again at level 8 in the mid lane. Finally, the Greater Scorpion, the battle that the Hex Mambo have been after for the past few minutes, has now gone down in their favor. Still no look at that Pyromancer, though, which I think would have been an option here, especially with Trix being in that Fafnir ultimate. Could have given it some extra burst of damage.
A little bit more damage from the Fafnir ultimate. You've got potentially best confirmation on map from Dzoni right now. Crushing Wave likely does beat out Kraken, but even then, Kraken's so low range that he would have to put himself in danger to look for a steal. As
Cripple connects on Echrome, and Echrome under a lot of pressure. The dash in from Vote. If the dash was still up, it would have been a different story. But QvoFred was in the wings, and the ultimate will be good enough. One more hit will do it as QvoFred secures the kill. And Trixtank can't bring down QvoFred in response there. Has to watch as Echrome falls again. Just trying to place a ward, man.
Man, Fred found his lane. He found where he needs to be if he wants to see something go in. 2 now for the Oni Warriors. And so far, Hex Mambo not pushing their lead. This could come back to bite them.
I agree.
They do have a phenomenal late game scaling composition, so they don't necessarily need to concern themselves in the early. But when you've got a lead like they did, it was what, 35, creeping up on 4K at one point? Maybe you do want to start looking at some of these objectives.
And look at this instead. Warriors trying to close that gap once again. A window opened up at the Fury. And obviously with NeilMah there on that Atlas too, the Shred going to come into play. And a quick objective taken by the Warriors there. I agree with you. I do think they've got laurels to rest on here, Mambo. But in doing so, you are kind of going, well, we're allowed to make mistakes. It's okay. We are a late game team. But why give them that window?
And if you leave that window open, the Oni Warriors will take the opportunity.
Because
Gold
they're
Fury
thieves.
that's still alive, that's right to be taken, and the Oni Warriors do exactly that. Hex Mambo still nursing a slight lead. Don't need to ring the alarm bells just yet. They still are in a vastly superior position. Their competition scales much harder. I don't think you're so concerned just yet. And with Pyromancer, get your lead back.
Could have been a couple of minutes attempts at this with Pyro before, but here it goes down again. But who's going to get it? It's Mambo. Just about at the tail end as Nika got aggro there to pick that one up and allow it to be secured. So Gold Fury for Pyro across the map. 2.5k gold lead just under for Hex Mambo at this moment in time. The experience has drifted down though. You can see people starting to catch up. Obviously, NeilMah being the furthest behind is now a level behind Trixtank. And that's some of the catch-up mechanic for the lowest level in the game, managing to find that far.
Just a little bit more. NeilMah, though, significantly behind in build still. Every single bit of damage from the Oni Warriors will come off the back of CC. NeilMah, QvoFred, Nika, Vote, all starting the fight with some form of CC that will proc that Spirit Shroud passive. A little bit of additional percentage defense always goes a bit of a ways. NeilMah, on the other hand, doesn't exactly have that opportunity. We're sitting on Gauntlet of Thieves and Thieves alone. Still very susceptible to some ganks. I'm thinking Dzoni should probably start getting active on map very shortly. We've got the blink available, that burst potential is there that we were talking about earlier, and Zero's got Poly. Could be good.
I was about to say who's the target, but Dardez just found the target. Blinking from Dzoni now.
So
He avoids the slug, and the chase is on as the water hands connect from Dzoni. Really clean kill, and there's nothing Dardez can really do. Like, you didn't see him use his beads or Aegis because he knew he wasn't escaping.
Yeah, even if you Aegis the water cannon, you're getting slammed by Crushing Wave.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're making the mental arithmetic. Is my Aegis worth his ultimate? Answer's no. Answer's no every single time. So Dardez, rightfully so.
QvoFred, they're going to try and look at Dzoni, but Dzoni found a beautiful knock-up to dissuade Cuvo going in. Now QvoFred on the run, the hammer from Trix off the mark. Tier 1 tower should fall down to Zyrhoes here with one basic. So if Dardez is falling there, they lose a Tier 1 tower and the red buff on this left-hand side. Unless Neil can stop it here, a little bit too late to the party.
Man, the Hex Mambo are playing so well on map right now. Nothing really to group up on and force into for a little whiles. Maybe even taking that Tier 1 tower could come back and bite them if Dardez so chooses. Could just hold that wave at his own Tier 2, make it a bit more difficult for Zeros to farm up. But if that's the case, it opens the door for Zeros to start rotating.
Yeah.
And if this were game 1, we're not worried about it, because Zeros is still level 14,
But
doesn't really have any items.
Polynomicon now.
He's got Polynomicon, he's got Divine Ruin, both his relics still available, hasn't been forced to rewind a single time this game. Zeros is a threat on map. He can take about just any 1v1.
It's funny when you look back at the last couple of minutes, though, how important that Gold Fury was for the Oni Warriors to hang in this game almost. Because straight after that, the Tier 1 falling, Dardez falling just there. This could have been a much further lead for Hex Mambo at this stage of the game here. But they need to start transitioning or look to transition soon. I think they're happy at the moment to just keep farming because they do have the better scaling in this game. But it's buying Warriors a bit of time too to try and recollect themselves and find one good team fight.
Yeah, and the itemization differences aren't massive just yet. Can we get a look at Golden Pocket maybe, Doug? Could be that Hex Mambo sitting on a good deal of it. 1,300 for Zeros. A Tier 2 item. Goes a pretty long ways. I'm excited to see where Zeros goes with the build. Doesn't necessarily generally go towards the auto attack items. He's not a ring Chronos. Likes to play it a bit more in that standard mage column. Get that full value of the Polynomicon power stack. So it could be the rest of this build a bit on the expensive side. Whereas the Oni Warriors, they're about on par in itemization for now.
Trixtank trying to do a bit of milking in the jungle there, away from that totem. Pressure on from QvoFred, who's kind of been zoned onto this left-hand side, worried about the pressure onto Vote at the moment. Chrome and Vote going to go at it for a second or two. Chrome really misplayed that with the dash in, but will it be brutal for him? It will now, as QvoFred's in, but so is Dzoni. And Dzoni and Vote both going to fall down as the rotations come through. The carries took a trade that cost them both their lives. Now it's QvoFred under threat, but not a whole ton of damage. Really came through there onto QvoFred, who will survive that engagement.
Yeah, Dzoni playing very patiently around his ultimate. He is not using it unless he needs to. Maybe saving it as a disengage tool. And who needs it? Yeah, Water Cannon's doing enough. We call Habwa the god of 3 ultimates because every single one of his abilities just does massive numbers.
3 ultimates, but I mean, honestly, the Atlas of the Yellow River is one of the most underrated. It's been nerfed a couple of times now, thank goodness. But that wet paper is very strong.
I agree. I said the same thing to the pros in the lobby the other day, and they laughed at me, so I'm not going to say it
Listen,
anymore.
pros don't know what they're doing. Listen to Twitch chat. They know.
Okay.
They all
You think
know.
Twitch chat thinks Alice the Yellow
Anyone
River's
not
like
playing
it?
this competitive is better.
Okay. All
That's
right.
what you need to know.
Understood. All right. Alice the Yellow River, he's the god of
These
four
guys just get
orphans.
paid for a living to do this. These guys are just trying to get to Worlds for this, and Zyrhoes has to get off a rewind to survive that mid lane gank attempt. No crack and consume, though, from Dardez on that rotation, but he does keep Zyrhoes honest for a second. That rewind now not available means that if he gets caught out again, the beads on Aegis will have to be used.
Well, we haven't seen so much attention from the Oni Warriors towards Zyrhoes. Even in Game 1, where the Oni Warriors are dominating, it was around the periphery. It was play through the side lanes, force Zyrhoes to rotate into you.
Yep.
It was never actually just run at him, perhaps because Chronos is so safe with the ultimate and the relics. So, we'll see whether or not the Oni Warriors can make use of that burnt rewind. It'd be difficult. The tools that they have, you gotta get through the relics first, I'm thinking.
Fury back up, Primal Fury this time round. Trixtank in the Fury pit at the moment with some deep wards in to keep an eye on Dardez there. Johnny Zero's Echrome now rotating in, and the burst could come through. Taking into account they do have this Fafnir, NeilMah and Dardez on scene. They're the only ones around, and in seeing that themselves, they're like, nope. Nika's in base, Qvo's on the right-hand side. Hex Mambo take it easy. Fury.
Did you see how fast that went as well?
It
The
will.
burn was so fast. I'm thinking, rotate Pyro? Rotate Fire?
I'd argue the biggest change that Mambo made was picking Fafnir earlier and not allowing Warriors to ban it away in the second phase. And this is the destructive power that can bring. Cubo might go for a steal attempt, just a little bit too late on scene. And even if he goes for that, he may end up falling to Deathwalker, who was rotating in as well for the safety feature. Dardez now level 18 though, working towards his Soul Reaver next more than likely. Those Charon's coins now online for majority of these mages means they're going to zoom a little bit quicker once they get those stacks online.
And they deal with tanks a bit quicker as well. 20% penetration will help you out in situations like that. I think Hex Mambo in a position now where any fight that comes their way is a good one. So you want to force fights. The only way to do it really is grouping up on towers. Generally, we'll see it in mid, but Zero's already dealt with it.
Yep.
So instead, Fire Giant could be a target. Oni Warriors, on the other hand, they've been willing to let go of the Pyro. They were willing to let go of the gold. You can't let any more go. It is starting to really veer out of control.
Oh,
for the
Neil
SPL
takes
team.
half his health, but watch out for Cubo around the back looking for Zyrhoes there. Kraken comes through too. Zyrhoes gets the Aegis off to stay
Got
alive
him.
as long as possible. Dardez still gets hold of Zyrhoes though, and immediately the Warriors run away as Deathwalker gives the chase. He roots onto two. Guan Yu for some peel to help out and sustain. Neil still running and will get escape. Dardez, a different story. The meaty cleaver of Deathwalker's hand will bring him down. And Nika has to limp back to his tier 2 tower. 4 members strong here. Mambo may look towards his FG.
Johnny still has ultimate. No Kraken for the Oni Warriors, at least for 40 seconds. Means best confirmation is on Mambo. It's Trixtank in first.
And beads down on Vote. The follow-up damage is pretty solid from Echrome, but if he's following up with damage, no one's doing the Fire Giant, which is then reset. So the presence of the Warriors there, just enough to persuade and dissuade, I should say, Hex Mambo from continuing. But that pick onto Zyrhoes and Dardez, like you said, fights are in Hex Mambo's favor by taking these?
Absolutely.
Still, yeah?
I mean, that fight not in their favor. Zero's worth more, to be sure, but any engagement still is one that Hex Mambo should likely be looking towards. It's a late game scaling composition. Both your late game scalers are 5 items deep into their build, and they are level 20. You're not aiming much higher than this. You're already in the clouds. So Hex Mambo, it's a victory lap from here. They've done so well up until this point to put themselves in this position that the Oni Warriors, it's going to take some heroic plays from individual members, I think, to separate it. Nika in particular, I brought him up earlier,
yeah.
could be a major disruption factor in these team fights. Zyrhoes, Johnny, both going to have to really respect that stun presence from Cavalry Charge. The follow-up damage, a bit lacking though. It's not ranged artillery from your mid laner. It's not ranged artillery from Vote. It's more so mid-range damage, massive burst. But putting yourself in that position is going to be difficult.
Mambo with a trebuchet pushing down the right-hand side will commit to the FG. It's bursting down quickly, below half health already. Quick reset out of Mambo, though. Trick's still going to hold it, but the team is just waiting patiently. Deathwalker zoning away. Looks for the carries in the back. Eats a Kraken, loses his life, but the FG goes the way of Mambo. Trixtank now on the run. Chrome needs to watch his position and dashes away. Cuvo looking at Johnny, who blinks away from the danger area. for members of Mambo with the FG. They lose Deathwalker, but they got what they came for.
And losing Deathwalker's just fine in a situation like that. He's not even the one that's necessarily going to be tanking up the structures, so the HP 5, not a major loss. The loss would come here. If you stick around and defend and you can't defend with your lives, well, then you lose out on a bit more fires. Oni Warriors take one tier 1 and back themselves up, perhaps the best they could have done in a situation like that. Hex Mambo, wait 20 seconds, Deathwalker's back on the map, and your siege is good. We talked about how maybe these unorthodox mages not great on defense.
Jeez, that damage.
Yeah, they're great on attack, by the way. Polynomicon, plus just what Chronos does naturally, he'll make short work of these towers.
Well, now it's all about where do Mambo try and siege up? Which towers do they try and take down? Use this FG to their advantage. Their builds pretty much getting close to completion now for a lot of them. You can see Echrome just waiting on upgrading that starter item at this stage. With the FG around their waist, will make quick work of towers. You saw how quick it was against the FG for this team. Towers and Phoenixes will not last long.
No, they won't. The Oni Warriors, I don't think, really in a position to defend on tier 2s. They can put up soft defense, but the initiation of Hex Mambo so fast, the damage output so quick as well, that it's very dangerous. And if you lose a life on a tier 2, you forfeit your Phoenix. Oni Warriors showing a bit of presence here.
Yeah,
they've got eyes on Deathwalker in mid.
One of the issues they've got for the Warriors here on defense is like, where's their counter engage really? It's very telegraphed there. We're going to defend because we have to run at you. Nika's going to blink on Guan you into you and tell her assault. Is that your hope? Are we looking at maybe the Atlas, you know, just running at you to try and set something up? And if you see that, Mambo might be able to just half health or fully health someone before that even happens.
Well, Blink Talu Assault, that's goofy. Blink instant cancel Cavalry Charge, get it like a double stun. That's not bad. It's a stun.
It sounds cool, but the tier 2 tower now going to get whittled down very quick. Trixtank happy to tank that up. Hammer connects with Neil, and Warriors just soft defense. The tier 2 stand at the Phoenix line. Dzoni showing his base in there shows the pressure is immediately relieved on this left-hand side. And Warriors, knowing that, are going to charge through the jungle and look for any cheeky, lazy backies.
Yeah, just checking Hex Mambo, making sure they're still playing clean. Nika can't stand up here alone. Doesn't necessarily win any of these fights on his own. Oni Warriors, ever the veterans, trying to find what they can do in a losing situation. A Pyromancer, a consolation prize in the truest sense of the word. It is not exactly the most valuable thing, but any small win in a situation like this.
Vote is going to look for it. Won't manage to find the cripple there. Instead, pressure relieved. Meanwhile, the right-hand side just farming up the jungle for the time being. That first FG, though, with only 2 minutes really left remaining on that buff at the moment, did they get enough worthwhile out of it, in your opinion?
I think so. I mean,
maybe they got a tier 2 in mid here.
Still have a full minute with the Fire Giant as well. Anybody gets picked, it's a Phoenix. I mean, I don't even think you necessarily need Fire Giant. I mean, look how quick that was.
Yeah, I mean,
that was half of
proc,
it.
100%. I think the interesting thing there was Warriors kind of all rotating right and not clearing that wave in mid, presented that option. Instead, they lose a little bit more of their jungle.
That's another one.
Mambo can start looking for this right-hand tower. With Trixtank around, they could just backdoor it.
Yeah, backdoor protection still there. Minion wave not so far behind them, but Oni Warriors have not got a horse in this race. Tier 2 falls down again. Trix freaking me out a little bit.
He's aggressive.
Alone?
He's aggressive. He used a Fafnir, though, so, you know, he'll be okay. Hang on, he did have to use a relic, though, defensively. You see him in his camera.
He looked at his boys.
He's like, where you going, boys? We should be fighting. It's like an FG. What's going on? They're like, Trix, listen, dude, FG's wearing off soon. We've got items
I can't believe that.
I love his face cam, though. That cam was great of him. Like, wait, what? Why did you
That
come
was
over with
the
me?
most genuine surprise.
He's still like, I just wasted relic for that for no reason.
Hey, it's okay. If it wasn't like, what is it, a 10,000 gold lead, he jumps in and he dies. And then maybe Fire Giant goes the other way.
I was going to say, I think it was even funnier to see what the Oni Warriors did there too, who kind of respected it for a second of him going, wait, he's running at us, the rest of his team disappears.
Yeah, who's hiding in the jungle right now?
But we need to be a little bit careful here between the two.
I don't think they need to be careful, but we had perfect information. They didn't. You know, no wards in the jungle right there. So
Sure.
I suppose some trepidation. If a Fafnir is running you down like that, you got to think, especially if it's Trixtank, he's got a plan.
Yeah.
He didn't, but you got to think he does.
Quick pause coming through here. I'm going to guess that it was Zero saying he didn't hear the call from Trixtank, that he was going in there. So they're just going to check the comms, I expect, between the two. This series, though, I mean, this is World Championships on the line. Guarantee you to go live in Texas, first of all. Big game between these two. And if you were one of the teams watching on, would you want to face one of these two teams at Worlds? Who would you choose?
If I had to choose between these two?
Oh, yeah.
Hex Mambo.
You'd rather face Hex Mambo?
They're playing Chronos, you know.
But
like nobody else is
Deathwalker's
doing
in a
that.
suit, dude.
Yeah, and he did say the rest of them are going to buy suits.
It's like Reservoir Dogs all walking in there together.
Yeah, or like a Boondock Saint situation,
Ooh,
maybe.
Good reference too.
I'm dodging Hex Mambo.
We're stalling for
It's mental
time
damage.
because we're bored too. We want the game back just as much as you. We'll be back with it as soon as we can. But at the moment, it's currently looking like Hex Mambo are going to tie us up at 1-1 here. A lot of people maybe at home didn't necessarily expect this. The Europeans amongst us, sure, you guys would have. I know, I've been reading the tweets. Did you not expect this? It was a 3-0 today for you?
I really thought so. Oni Warriors are looking like the best team in the tournament. Everybody's saying it. The Oni Warriors are saying it as well. I think Hex Mambo would have admitted it too, but looking like they can bleed right now.
I think if you're an Oni Warriors fan, though, for the most part, you've gone through some trepidation of watching this team over the past couple of years really try and find their footing. And honestly, they've not shown what we expected this team could do. You've got some great caliber players, former world champions on this as well, alongside Dardez and Nika, who just haven't found the wins that they've wanted to throughout the year and done as well as we wanted. But now, maybe, is the time we'll do it.
Could be. I don't think you can let this Fire Giant go if you're the Oni Warriors. And you can see it reflected in their idea of we need wards all over the fire.
My concern there, Myth, right, is what you're looking for, a bloody Kraken at the FG again. How many times have we seen games where Krakens on FGs go wrong?
Look, it's not even necessarily you need Kraken to land it and steal fire. You need to show face so that Hex Mambo feels threatened enough to use their own abilities on fire. If Johnny feels like, I have to Crushing Wave this or it's a coin toss, then you can maybe punish Johnny on the tail end, find a pick, slow down the Fire Giant siege. It's about forcing errors by showing presence. If the Oni Warriors don't step up here and Hex Mambo take fire for free, the siege comes easily.
FG is spawning right now. A minute and a half until the enhanced Fire Giant. I was going to say Extreme Fire Giant. I like that better. The Extreme Fire Giant is online.
Get some sunglasses.
Is it so extreme?
That's right.
Just to prevent
Turns
the
his hat
burn?
backwards.
Could happen. Won't take too long for him to burst it down, especially with that polyplot. Keep an eye on Nika and QvoFred trying to wrap around the back. Trixtank trying to keep Vote honest and jumps on Nika to keep him in combat and avoid that blink. But the presence of Warriors alone, as you were kind of asking for, has dissuaded Mambo for a second. FG regenning. Mambo back into the pit, but the wards, they've got one round the back on Zyrhoes and Johnny there, so they do have vision of these carries. And the Warriors are just slowly watching this get whittled down.
Fire Giant burning quick. Execution range. Hex Mambo take it for themselves. The Oni Warriors, it's not time to fight anymore. You got to get out.
Run for your lives, boys, because Deathwalker's here, and a great knockback actually prevents Neil from hitting everybody. Kraken was a party Kraken to celebrate the victory of Mambo here. Nika will take out Echrome, who split from his team. Trixtank now jumping in with Johnny to secure the kill on Dardez. Cubo will next fall. And finally, it's Nika left alone with his Titan and Phoenixes to try and weather the storm of the four-man army. Mambo are going to be tying this up 1-1 by the looks of it. And that was relatively strange for me to see them all watch the FG go down and then get caught on the run back.
I think they were just caught unaware by that burn potential. The Chronos, it's Zero staring at it, it's burning slowly, and then Zero says, oh, it's half? 2 auto attacks, and it's down to a quarter. From there, easy confirmation from the water cannon. Hex Mambo absolutely outpaced the Oni Warriors here in Game 2, an inverse of Game 1. And with a composition that is not necessarily built for it. Habwa jungle certainly faster than Mercury, but not exactly a fast jungle pick. Johnny just really got the better end of Cubo in this one.
I really don't even feel like it was a jungle matchup because the junglers stayed away from each other for the very first period of that game. We saw the whole idea of left-hand side, we saw the gank pressure from Johnny looking for these purple buffs to invade consistently. And then the turnaround from that was watching Cubo trying to answer back the pressure. But overall, it felt like a dual lane battle that just kind of swayed through the map and left Zyrhoes all the time in the world.
I'll do you one better. It felt like a support battle, didn't it? It's just NeilMah really struggling that early game that gave over so much advantage to Trixtank.
Yep.
He was allowed to rotate throughout the entirety of the map because Echrome sure was leveraging pressure, but it was the Fafnir that was the difference maker.
It's a good way of looking at it because Fafnir was banned away Game 1. Game 2, it gets picked in the early phase. Definitely makes some impact in that game. And then again, I mean, Game 1, Trixtank really struggled on the Sobek too, so both supports did have some issues there. Game 3 is after the break. We're tied up at 1-1. We're guaranteed to go 4 games in this one. Who's going to win it? Let us know. We'll tell you after the break.
one more game 4 guaranteed here today as Hex Mambo will take over the momentum in game number 2 and tie up our set at 1 apiece. And what a game it was for Hex Mambo. One where there are still some questions. How are they going to make some picks in game 1 that didn't quite work? Look here in game number 2. And ultimately, Hex Mambo able to surge here forward. The Hebo jungle looks fantastic. Oni Warriors drop the second game, and we're all tied up at 1. Trelly Relly joins me again to break down exactly what happened here in game 2. And Trelly, although we weren't massive fans of the way Chronos looked in game 1.
Right.
Honestly, to a similar length, still had like 4,000 damage or something like that. So it took a minute to get there.
Right.
But ultimately, we reached that late game point. I think the composition, the addition of the Hebo is something that I think you were excited about.
Yep.
And all of that built up to a Hex Mambo win.
I think the Ishtar Fafnir had great pressure in duo lane. Of course, Echrome did get a little focused by Qvo, but it allowed the rest of the team to flourish, so we're not going to zone in on that. The pressure from the Hebo, Dzoni got off to a great start. Zyrhoes was also getting some of those last hits, confirming a lot of those kills in the early as well. Picking NeilMah twice before like 10 minutes, that's also going to make sure your lane gets off to a great start, but this is kind of what the Ishtar pressure provides. You get a little bit of extra farm, you get a little bit of those camps, you get some invades, you're going to hit level 5 first, you're going to get your ultimates, and unfortunately NeilMah was not really able to survive. And picks like Chronos, of course, can work when they're being facilitated with that early pressure. And I think Hebo's early game is like sneaky, very strong. That water cannon is on a 2-second cooldown max, and it only gets better. We just saw 4 water cannons in that one clip, and he can do that at level 1. So that's the kind of play that you can bring on Hebo if you're left uncontested, and Dzoni was absolutely popping off this game. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get it in game number 3.
Honestly, because it's such a unique pick, but it is something that Dzoni has now played in both of the sets we've seen from Hex Mambo here this weekend. Again, it beat the Solar Scarabs in game 3, and it beats the Oni Warriors here in game number 2. 5-0-6 feels just fine for Dzoni out of the jungle. And you were right, Echrome received most of the pressure there from QvoFred, but for Hex Mambo, felt okay. They were able to win regardless. Qvo looked good on the Pele, but it was a bit of a quiet game from the rest of the Oni Warriors. NeilMah caught out of sorts a couple of times over in lane. An unfortunate 0-4 NeilMah performance. Though I will say, when we see those, it tends to be still a big turnaround.
Trix still out-damaged him,
Still out-damaged Zyrhoes by about 100. And so Zyrhoes just above the supports. Or no, just above a support.
Yeah.
Beneath the other. Yeah, I don't know. You know, admittedly, Trelly, I think it's hard to kind of gauge what to do with it, right? Because it finished off some kills here in this game.
Right.
And it had its place.
The structure damage was very high.
Right, the structure damage was good. You don't need a Chronos to do that necessarily, though. It helped maybe that it was a Chronos later on in the game.
I think at some point,
it's interesting because against the Oni Warriors,
yeah,
if your mid laner is getting out-damaged by the support, you're only going to win so many games, right? You're rolling the dice.
Yeah.
But look, who am I to say it worked here in game 2, right? I mean, if that's what if Hex Mambo feel like they can play around it, then more power to them. So I'm very curious where the Chronos ends up landing because it's a couple lower damage games, but this one finishes off some kills. But it's now 1-1 in this set. It's kind of in this weird limbo point right now. I'm not sure what I would do with it.
I just think that at this point, it says more about Trix than it does Zyrhoes. Like, Trix is consistently
Sure.
going, and that Fafnir was popping off, and also is a very low damage game as was.
That is a diplomatic way of looking at it, Trilly. Picks and bans for game number 3 of at least 4. No winners to be had here in game number 3. Hex Mambo over in the second pick spot. Got to think about what are some of those big power first pick options for the Oni Warriors here. Plenty, I'm sure that QvoFred would like to play in the jungle. Daji has been banned out pretty heavily, 66% of the time here, just in group stages in general. Banned 100% of the time against Hex Mambo, and that's worth looking at, where the Daji has just not been allowed to be played by Dzoni specifically. Whereas Hades, yeah, you don't want Nika to get that one, falls under the same exact 100% win rate. And the Daji will maintain a 100% win rate as well against Hex Mambo, with the Naja following. So Chronos still open, and still a lot of power left on the board.
Yeah, that Hebo is going to make its way through, though. Maybe the Oni Warriors are trying to bait that pick, saying, hey, we're just going to play some more early. However, that Maui is something that a lot of these supports have been fighting for. It does give you some great early pressure, some late game engage. It makes your sieges a lot easier when you can just use that landfall ultimate to yoink half the team out from underneath their Phoenix. So I never think that's going to be a bad first pick. And of course, the Mambo are going to answer back, grabbing themselves a Cern. Definitely the best ADC that's open on the tier list with that Ishtar being banned away.
Yep. Great 1-2 punch here from Hex Mambo. Cern plus Ama. And you know, Deathwalker's Amaterasu is so strong. It's been talked about plenty for good reason. Controls the lane, controls team fights. It's been a fun battle over in the solo lane. Deathwalker versus Nika, and we've seen some fun mid lane battles. The jungle has really started to take off here as well. Maui plus Cupid, that's become a very popular pairing over in the duo lane. 100% win rate for Cupid so far this weekend in the 2 games that have been played. Oni Warriors not revealing too much here, Trelly, with their first 3. Maui, Cupid, Agni. Pretty well-rounded, pretty standard in their early composition.
Yep, 2 characters that do some good damage, have that good space control, can pull relics, but also no CC immunity in those 2 characters, so it does open you up to beads burning compositions. The Amaterasu and the Cernunnos certainly can do it, but the question is, are you prioritizing the Chronos, which is usually what's been picked in this slot? Right before second wave of bans, grab Zyrhoes on his comfort pick, you're going to feel fine. Or do you want to look towards something that can really benefit from the fact that Agni and Cupid only get 1 pair of beads, and they could be targeted? You know, the Ares, for example, for Trixtank, that could be aggressive, or the Hunbats for Dzoni. Not things that they've went to, but it looks like switching off the Chronos finally, not even banned away. Zyrhoes did it on his own accord, and he's going to go for the Baba. I like this pick so much better, I can't even begin to explain how much I love the Baba. Into matchups like this, you just free farm the same style of way, but you can come online a lot easier, you still have a lot more safety, and your late game damage just as high.
And Baba Yaga for Zyrhoes won in Game 3 up against the Solar Scarabs earlier on this weekend in a 2-0-12 game. So, both teams still needing a jungler. Thor's been now banned out against QvoFred. And Cuvo's had a handful of different picks. Naja's been the overwhelming popular pick, but Pele, as we've seen, Hunbats, also something that QvoFred will go to a couple of times. I wouldn't be surprised if we to see both junglers eating a couple of bans here. Mercury's still around if that's something Dzoni feels like he wants to run back. And still some good options for QvoFred as well. But then there's just this looming threat of what Nika might get out of the solo lane. I mean, you take away a lot with the Hades. But that's really about it here. And then, of course, the Amaterasu can't get played. So Nika's really going to have his pick of the litter. But neither Dzoni nor QvoFred will with all the jungle bans.
Yeah, I definitely expected the Hebo ban. The Wheelix, I guess, just something that the Oni Warriors didn't want to see Dzoni on. I still think that Hunbats would be a very solid grab here, but if Johnny's not in the mood to play it, he's got his options. I agree, the Mercury, that farm game that Dzoni was playing early on, where he was just kind of ignoring the team fights, running away from the Oni Warriors as much as he could, and just trying to hit level 20. It can work, but not when the Warriors have a lead like that. They were really fast tracking the game. So in this situation, if you are going to go towards the Merc, you got to make sure you're stepping on the gas at least a little bit, right? At least forcing some early ganks. Duo lane's a great place to find that. Once again, Cupid only get 1 pair of beads. If you find those sonic booms in the long lane, you can definitely look to try and get the Cernunnos ahead. But I think Johnny's got a very diverse god pool. We still haven't seen his Loki yet this tournament, and he loves to go to that as well.
Is Loki in a good enough spot where you still think, I mean, I know Johnny's Loki gets a boost.
Yeah, I think just because it's Johnny's Loki, I wouldn't mind it. If Cuvo picked Loki, no, I would say, wait, why is he picking Loki? He's got better gods. But Johnny's played it when it was bad. He's played it when it's good. And at the moment, it's kind of meh, and he's still able to perform on it. So wouldn't hate it. I just think that, you know, anything that can burn beads, and Sobek can do that pretty well.
Sobek can do that very well. Did not win in game 1, but still was able to create pressure and output decent amount of damage for Hex Mambo and Trixtank specifically. NeilMah did not come to mind, but maybe should have. It's a very strong pick. And the later on shred damage is definitely there. So cleanup plus Achilles, Trelly, to finish off the draft for the Oni Warriors. Talk to me about the first tier. Cliodhna
No
saw
way.
decent bit of play upon release. Where do you think Cliodhna stands now?
In this case, I'm thinking if it's Nika taking the Cliodhna, which I've seen him play many times
Yeah,
back
I
when
guess
she
there
was
could be.
she was much stronger in the solo lane when she released, and Nika loved this pick. Then took some nerfs. You can't really build the hybrid Cliodhna anymore and still one-shot carries. Like, you actually have to commit to the full damage route, and against an Amaterasu, not your best option. So I'm going to say if it's Qvo and Cliodhna in the jungle, that's a much better time, right? You can immune a lot of damage inside the wall. During Fire Giant sieges, that can be an absolute nightmare. You just, Cliodhna's literally hiding from you inside the walls. You can't immune her damage. She's just going to be spamming abilities, that sort of thing. Her early pressure isn't the greatest, but you're not too worried about a Mercury either, so you're just trying to get your stacking items online. I like the Achilles as well. It's a good matchup into the Baba Yaga. She can't pop Aegis in the house, and she has some shielding, but shielding doesn't really defend against execute. So if she gets low and goes into that house, you can always just send the Achilles, try to get her to that % threshold, and execute her before she gets her damage off.
Now, when I think of the way Nika likes to play Smite, Achilles really comes to mind. I think it's such a good player-god combination. We've seen plenty of great Achilles games in the past when Nika's been playing it. It ends up being the Mercury, though, on the other side for Hex Mambo. That'll finish off the draft. And Trelly, Mercury is not yet won this weekend for anyone, but Hex Mambo's the only team who's played it. Game 1 against the Solar Scarabs went 4-2-5. That was a loss on Mercury. And then game 1 in this set against the Oni Warriors goes 1-3-1. Felt like we might end up seeing the Mercury come out. Some good options, some good lanes to look at. With all that was available, though, does the Mercury still make sense?
I actually think the Mercury makes a lot more sense in this game than it has in previous because of the matchup with Cupid, right? You can just say, hey, is Vote up about halfway through the lane? Okay, I'm sending it. I'm ulting down the lane. I'll get his beads. Don't worry. I'll come back in a couple seconds, and I'm going to do it again. That does leave you some opportunities to get online. If Dzoni plays the PvE style where he's similar to Loki, where he's just running to farm and not helping out his team, then the Mercury loses a bit of value for me. Unless you're hard carrying away and just absolutely popping off. Last time it didn't work. He did ignore his team and get farm, but they weren't able to translate that into anything. I'm thinking Dzoni knows, hey, you guys need my help. I'm going to be trying to get active on the Mercury this time.
Yeah, and game 1 is what you're referencing where felt like the Mercury ended up just being relegated to farming up the back camps, trying to hit some of those power spikes while the Oni Warriors were really just running down the rest of the map. So we're hoping if we're Hex Mambo that it's able to get a bit more active and have more of an influence on the game. Now, it's still Baba Yaga out of mid-Trelly, but if you're getting active, you're talking about maybe an easier time for Zyrhoes to get spun up over in the mid lane. Tiebreaker, game number 3, Hex Mambo, Oni Warriors. This is a big one, and Hindu Man and Mifflin will take you through it.
Yes, we will. Game 3 in a best of 5. One of my favorites, Mifflin, because this one generally gives you the idea of who's going to win.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
what I bring.
10 years, huh? You've been at
9.
this.
Season 9, dude. It's not been season 10 yet.
You weren't preseason.
No.
Oh.
No.
I thought you were running around with the dinosaurs for a while there.
I was. There's plenty of dinosaurs around. I am one now. Speaking of dinosaurs, Trixtank back at the Sobek. See that transition? I'm so good at this.
Okay, yeah.
What's up?
I mean, I was just thinking that, Sobek isn't a dinosaur, more of a reptile.
Continue.
I mean, that's it, really.
Okay, good job. Neil looking for a bit of a cheeky invade and a bit of drama here in the jungle. He does have that leap available, which is very, very useful at getting a bit of CC off and stealing away. Plus, his clear is fantastic with the AoE. I think Neil's still going to go for the purple invade here. But it's going to give Trick some help, is what I'm expecting, as we check this one out between the two. Will the Hogs come out?
He's just trying to deny ADC farm, right?
Yeah, which is what he does.
As long as it gets cleared
But look
before
at where
he sees here.
Echrome is. Right behind it, gets the experience. Echrome loses out on nothing. And now NeilMah,
oh no,
maybe under a bit of pressure, will be able to escape with the leap for the time being. But this puts him at a deficit in lane. And I'll be honest with you, knowing Maui, he doesn't need to do that. He can get lane pressure real easy by doing the standard clear. But this is going to give Echrome and Trix a bit of an advantage in this dual lane now.
Well, Vote should still be out farming Echrome. It really is just Neil that's suffering from that one.
True. But I think you lose a lot of pressure by doing that if it goes wrong, which is exactly what we're seeing.
Yep. Unfortunately for Hex Mambo, I don't think Sobek's like the best at pushing pressure. If you play around your wave properly,
You reckon?
it's pretty difficult to actually
That
play
level
around
2
that pluck. Level 2 pluck's like okay, but level 2 Cern, I mean, as long as your dash is up for vote, leap's already there for Neil. I don't really see it affecting the kills too much. We'll see, I think, the trickle-down effect around next purple left spawn.
Well,
If Hex Mambo keep it, they can just like walk in.
They will at least get the scroll on this left-hand side. Mid-lane pressure go in the way of the Agni alongside the cleaner, and it's going to be cleaner in the jungle as well. The Des was talking about the option of it seen that on Nika this game because Nika's gone to it quite a few times. Instead, it's on QvoFred at the moment. Zyrhoes going to use his leap to get some wave clear going and keep the pressure rolling at the moment. Takes a bit of time for both those carries in the mid lane to just start to get a couple levels under their belt to effectively clear the wave safely.
Already a better start for QvoFred, though. Gets involved early, slight experience advantage. It was actually 9 minutes into the game, I believe, in game 2 before QvoFred made contact.
Johnny could be under pressure. Great dash from Dardez after the stun too.
Chase.
But Johnny split the difference and
Chase.
chose a different option. Why Chase, though?
You might be able to kill him. Did he go for the second ability? If he did...
No, he didn't. He saw him dash a minute ago.
Well, no, not Johnny. I'm QvoFred. Yeah, you get additional movement speed from that one.
Gotcha.
At least able to chase out, steal away some of these back camps.
Well, there's one. Now the fight continues. 1-for-1 exchange. Johnny falls back to a tier 2 again.
Blue buff.
Blue buff does respawn, and look at the map position there. You can see exactly where Deathwalker is now. He's trying to invade the other blue buff at the same time. Johnny looks like he secured that camp, and Cuvo's like, you know what? I'm going to sit in the wall for a bit, boys. I don't care. He'll go behind the tier 1, tier 2 tower and probably recall, I'm guessing, unless he gets caught there. Left-hand side, so a bit of an invade coming through from Trixtank looking at the red buff. Won't be successful this time round.
I'm surprised Johnny doesn't decide to chase that one out either. It's the only place he could have gone, QvoFred that is, and actually escape. Special delivery around the corner. I mean, you can catch him out. A rotation from Deathwalker, potentially. Could have kept things interesting there, but...
But look at the pressure in dual lane for Hex Mambo, though. You saw Trixtank just steal away the purple buff with that sickening strike.
Hey, there
and
it
now
is.
the pressure's just going to keep on rolling on through.
Yeah, that's exactly what you were talking about. That pressure finally started to build up. I guess you have been doing it for a while.
I said continue.
You got it. And Trixtank now got level 4. That's going to be a hard comeback for the Oni Warriors. Cupid's got some inherent safety. Fields of Love, we talk about how good it is at forcing relics from the opposition. You can at least use it to peel out for yourself in some of these more precarious situations. So I'm not overly concerned. It still is an improvement from game 2's start.
Well,
it is certainly better.
One attention I want to turn to is back to the solo lane, because both these two big influential players, I don't think they've had a big set so far either for the most part. But how do you feel about this matchup? Because I was going to say, how does this go? It's looking like it goes Achilles' way.
Achilles just has so much poke potential. Deathwalker very committal. If he wants to deal damage in return, it's generally the second and third ability used in conjunction. And you're not exactly clearing the wave if you're using it all on Nika. Whereas Nika could just combat dodge over and over, poke you and the wave at the exact same time, while simultaneously healing, and a bit more solo potential thanks to that execute. So Achilles should get the better end of this one throughout the early, but both are very susceptible to ganks because of the itemization. Golden Blade in first slot boosts both their clears, boosts both their damage. Doesn't really help you out too much when Johnny or QvoFred show up.
Cuvo now on an adventure to the right-hand side of the map. Blue buff spawning and Nika here in tow. Deathwalker did just come back from base with a teleport and does have his item online now to match that of Nika as Blue buff looked at. Johnny thinking about the Sonic Boom here, but he won't be there in time to secure the blue. Nika has it wrapped around his wrist.
So pick up this blue. Deathwalker's been absent from the last couple of defenses. Surprised that Johnny's willing to dedicate so much time when his soul laner doesn't seem to be concerned, right? I mean, speaking from experience, defending blue buff, one of my least favorite things to do as a jungler. It is so frustrating.
I want to say the two least favorite things that junglers want to do is defend blue buffs and gank duo lane.
Well, ganking dual lane's okay. I mean, you don't want to do it, but if you get a kill, you feel all right about doing it.
But
I
if you
never
don't-
feel good about a blue buff defense.
Never.
I'm like, oh, you got more mana. Good for you.
Get pressure, noob. That's kind of it's your own
Essentially.
fault, right?
Yeah.
It's the jungler's fault for the lack of pressure in the jungle is why the blue buffs get invaded.
No.
No?
No, because Nika was there, and Deathwalker wasn't. So it's obviously not jungle pressure because both junglers were there.
You hope that's going to work with me? It's not.
But that's what happened.
Okay. Johnny doing his back camp so great. Scorpion down for the Oni Warriors here. The goal difference between the two, marginal. There's no kills so far. No real surprise at 5 minutes in. I mean, with this style of composition, though, it's a little bit more even, I want to say, in terms of fight potential. As the Sonic Boom came through from Johnny, Nika avoided it, but he won't avoid the ultimate follow-up damage from Johnny too. Hex Mambo find the first kill on the solo laner.
Johnny's just the homie for Deathwalker. confirming the blue buffs for him, defending on his own, now rotating through and turning the lane on its head as well.
See, this is why you're not a pro anymore. If you would do that, you might still be playing pro.
No,
Gank for your solo.
I've already been killed twice, unfortunately, and I can't play Mercury. So Dzoni very much so deserves his spot here, and I deserve my spot holding a microphone.
You're not holding anything you had. Dzoni, meanwhile, though, I do want to say, though, like, one of the European junglers that have been rated highly for a very, very long time. And going up against QvoFred, who, outside of probably adapting, has the most lustrous career in the jungle as well. And Dzoni, today, game 1, kind of struggled a little bit, but was that really his fault or more the team identity? Game 2, definitely popped off on that Hebo. Game 3, back to the Mercury again, but with a slightly different composition where he's not necessarily babysitting as much of Chronos.
No, Baba Yaga's still a bit of a scaler, but has the potential. It's the same shift up, whereas Baba Yaga's maybe not the pressure pick. It's still a bit of a middle ground between Chronos and something that could just jam pressure down the lane, which is facilitating Dzoni to do a little bit more so whatever he wants on the map. Haven't seen too many rotations towards mids, though. So Dardez and Zyrhoes both farming up freely and both stacking, but only one of them gets stacks for free. Zyrhoes to finish up that Book of Thoth much sooner. I am concerned. If the Oni Warriors can't start limiting Zyrhoes soon, this guy is very apt to go towards Warlock Staff in next slot, Charon's Coin after,
All
and
the
just
stacks,
really
baby.
stack up.
Definitely 60 stacks already on that Book of Thoth. You can see it's 40 ahead now of the Agni in the mid lane. No surprises with how that house works on the passive. But all the while, Hex Mambo trying to find windows on this right-hand side. Big hook from Neil, though. Will get the beads out after the damage from Dardez was causing most of the issues there. Zyrhoes going to have to just hold his positioning back a little bit further now.
And it's not as if he's playing Chronos, so Rewind not exactly available. Home Sweet Home, a pretty decent self-peel tool. The knock-up at melee range, the HP shield will make it difficult to make use of those burnt beads, but definitely a much more realizable goal than actually killing a Chronos.
Nika trying to defend his Scorpion on the right-hand side. As the left-hand side, the scroll fight continues. And at the moment, Chrome just going to clear out the wave and keep the pressure rolling there. And that forces the Warriors to surrender control of the scroll area.
So Hex Mambo maintain pressure on the
Johnny
left.
on the tower, but he will get away with it, and Deathwalker gets credit for the kill. Dzoni ganks again onto Nika in the solo lane.
We've seen Mercury answers before in the past. I think it was Barracuda that essentially coined the "I'll ward between the towers because you're going to camp me anyway." That could prevent some of these tumbles for Nika, but difficult to find your position there. Red buff invade attempted. Looked to be successful from the Oni Warriors. No?
No.
Have I mistaken?
The blue appeared. Sorry, the red appeared. Just to show it was. Trixtank, though, under pressure. And now has to use the look in the water's landfall will prevent the escape. And that's the worst situation. Neil didn't drop the landfall wall. And sometimes people underestimate just how impactful that can be. Neil, though, too busy milking to help out against Echrome there. His vote took a ton of damage for free. No further rotation coming in, however, after that invade.
Finding a pick on a Trixtank, of course, valuable. It's something to slow him down, getting NeilMah back in a more even state, but Hex Mambo still nursing a massive lead, and the issue is arising in the soul lane. Nika's going to need some help very shortly. Hex Mambo have got phenomenal burn potential. We're about 40 seconds away from Pyromancer spawning. If Deathwalker is allowed to rotate towards it, he's got the passive to make it a bit quicker. You've got an auto-attack jungler that's already finished up his rage. And you've got pretty decent burn potential from Zyrhoes as well. This could be one where Hex Mambo looks for Pyromancer very early, especially if they keep up the presence in solo.
Yeah, I can see
If Nika
that.
falls, I mean, that's it. That's Pyro.
I think the scarier thing to deal with the Amaterasu is the proxy farm. The invade of the jungle consistent that we're seeing now, looking towards QvoFred and farming between tier 1 and tier 2 is going to cause a problem for them on that right-hand side of the map. There's not a whole ton Nika can do if he's that far behind. All he can do is try and clear some of those camps himself, which in tow could put Cuvo further behind.
That's not where you want QvoFred to be. We're very close to some significant power spikes for QvoFred. Once you finish up that heavy mace, you'll have pretty decent burn potential.
Sonic
Nice
Boom
shot!
connects again, throws him back into Deathwalker. Silence connects, good stun from Nika. Tries to buy time for his ultimate. Dzoni covers the option, didn't even go through, and that is a tier 1 tower on the right-hand side. Meanwhile, though, Warriors making a very good call here to commit to the Fury straight after.
Cliodhna, one of her primary strengths is the ability to burn those objectives. That Veil just really makes short work of them. So the Oni Warriors take the Gold Fury, the classic ranked call. 2 in my lane, do something somewhere else. And They do. The Oni Warriors make them pay.
Uh-oh, Vote in trouble here against Echrome. Echrome going to take the trade. Doesn't find a very good ultimate himself, though. But the chase is still on with Trixtank following up. So is NeilMah. What can Neil do to prevent his Vote from dying? Vote trying to live as long as he can, but Trix will secure. NeilMah still around, has Qvo in backup as Trixtank pulled under the tower for a second. Small mistakes by both there. Vote very aggressive, stood up in Echrome's face. Echrome, bit surprised by it, I want to say, because his ultimate wasn't on the mark, but he still finds the kill.
Yeah, just a couple of lucky crits there. I mean, it was crit diff between Vote and Echrome. They both have the same percentage, but it seemed like Echrome had more. I believe it was 2 or 3 that land in the 1v1. Vote tries to step back up to pick up the heart, maybe not realizing how close by Trixtank was. Once he's in that lurking the water range, that's the end of your life. There's no escape without that dash, no matter what NeilMah does.
And right hand side, you can see Deathwalker trying to continue the aggression on this right hand side now, knowing the tower's down. Has this 2-level lead. There's not a whole ton Nika can do. Without a tower as well, it makes it even more problematic if we see one more gank from Dzoni. But realistically, should we see Dzoni look to other lanes at this point now? Has he done the damage that was needed to be done to Nika, or does he need to do some more?
I'm thinking Deathwalker could take it from here with a 2-level lead, so long as he doesn't fall down.
Being chased through the jungle once
all
more.
right.
And this is exactly what you're going to see out this Amaterasu now with the pressure that's been given to him. Neil's going to be careful here. Will leap over the wall away from the pluck out from Trixtank. But that's just opened up a bit of a window there for Dzoni to take the right-hand Harpies and continue extending this gold lead. This is just over 3,000.
Yeah, Dzoni, I think you're done in the soul lane. You can go ahead and rotate out, maybe put some pressure over towards Vote. Echrome a bit more even. Itemization parity between the two hunters. And ultimate, a Sonic Boom might just be enough to tip the scales heavily in favor of Hex Mambo. But there's not much to fight over on map as of right now. And Hex Mambo, ever the team to play it slow and clinical. If there's nothing to fight over, why fight? That's Hex Mambo's credo. And for now, we're just waiting on Gold Fury or Pyromancer to spawn back up. You can still leverage pressure around Deathwalker, who will likely just continually walk into these back cams. Amaterasu, very survivable with the CC immune ultimate, plus sustain, plus additional movement speed from the first ability. That farm just going to belong to Deathwalker for a good while. Where's QvoFred at, though? If Dzoni is putting all this pressure in the soul lane, Qvo needs to make up for it somewhere else. He's just desperately searching for farm in his own jungle, 3 levels down.
And Dzoni might find Qvo in the jungle here as well. Dzoni with a 3-level lead over QvoFred, who's only level 11, doesn't have the secondary relic. Speaking of secondary relics, Neil might have needed one in mid there. He will leap back to safety after the pluck from Trixtank. Qvo going to rotate in here and try and keep Mambo honest for a moment or two. On the right-hand side, we've got Deathwalker once again looking to take out Nika's blue buff.
Nika can pepper some damage in, but he can't out-confirm. Deathwalker grabs it, but there's a lot nearby.
But I still think he's out. He's got ultimate available still as the chase is on from Warriors. They won't find Deathwalker, who's now level 15. And this is the issue that the Warriors have to deal with. Last time, though, when we saw the ganks earlier, there was a Gold Fury taken. There's nothing up this time, though, at the moment for them to really look at on this left-hand side.
No, if anything, the only reason Hex Mambo is looking to fight for now is stacking up the rage for Dzoni. That's maybe the most significant thing you could gain on map, barring a couple of buff invades, but right side buffs holistically belong to Deathwalker.
Good old
Maybe
Doug.
a Vote?
Doug knows what's up here. Lane gank coming down from the Mercury potentially. Vote going to check on the scroll. Dzoni and Echrome should know he's on it. They have a ward on it, and now Vote going to get collapsed on. Trade goes in Echrome's favor. Dzoni gets caught by the minions there, I want to say, as he came back in the jungle, so pressure relieved, but at the same time, it did give the window for Echrome to secure the scroll.
Very narrowly escapes with his life there, Vote did. If Dzoni gets the angle, that's at least the beads, potentially even more off of the Cupid, so great stuff from Vote to be able to escape that situation. Very sticky. But Hex Mambo still take a small win. Scepter, certainly valuable at this point. Give you over a little bit of additional HP 5, some AoE damage.
Go pluck onto NeilMah. NeilMah leaps away back to his tower range. QvoFred, though, has found a window for some farm. It's the red buff of the Hex Mambo on the left-hand side. Dzoni, annoyed by that situation, is going to try and commit. Qvo can't get in the wall in time, and Dzoni gets credit for the kill, but at least he got the red buff.
I think you just got into that damage threshold a bit too early. A crit from Dzoni and stacks up once more on that rage. QvoFred, this is the desperate plays that junglers are forced into. When you've been deprived of your own, you got to find that farm somewhere. At least does get the red, but not a value trade. He can spend 20 seconds to grayscale thinking about some of his mistakes as Hex Mambo We're getting close to that Gold Fury respawn.
Oh, it's already up, and you can already see the army of Mambos just walking over towards this Oni Fury. Zyrhoes is here first, but now Dardez and NeilMah appear from the mid lane. Vote from the dual lane is on his way, but it's going to be too little too late to contest as Mambo get that Fury. And honestly, with the pressure that Amaterasu has on this right-hand side, this could convert into a Pyro next once those minions start to pour down.
Yeah, Deathwalker is already doing the Greater Scorpion, just priming up the map on his own. And, well, Nika can walk over and poke him. It's going to be exactly like the blue buff, maybe a steal potential.
Yeah.
Not the case this time, Deathwalker. Able to grab it once more and pull the Pyromancer. You can't slow him down. He's doing whatever he wants.
Credit where he's due as well, though. This was Dzoni continuing to keep the pressure rolling on Nika that has just opened this window of like, well, we control the right-hand side of the map, and there is nothing the Warriors can do about it at this stage.
No, it's got to be elsewhere, but we're starting to get into desperate, desperate territory. 7,000-ish gold. The composition from Hex Mambo, again, does scale incredibly well into the late game. Zyrhoes has been allowed to free farm for 16.5 minutes, so Book of Thoth and Warlock staff both completed in stacks before he's even seen any action. Triple goose egg for the mid laner of Hex Mambo. You might not like it, but that's peak performance.
I'll say the question really is going to come back to, and I think a lot of fans may feel the same way, of what was the cleaner pick for? Where was it supposed to focus? What was the ideology of why we were picking this here?
I gotta think it really was about the objective play. Cliodhna is so good at running down Pyromancer, running down Gold Fury. From an even state, she generates the threat of, hey, we could just sneak it and you need to be aware of where I am.
Yeah.
But the even state wasn't there. It was early ganks from Dzoni that put the entirety of the right-hand side behind. QvoFred spends the entire time just trying to catch up in farm, wasn't able to actually move in towards the objective.
Neil's got to be careful here. Level 17 on this Mercury is just going to cause a ton of damage. Neil will escape back to the tier 1 tower in mid lane for now. Pyro now down. Mambo are just kind of on the hunt. There's nothing really for them to do. All the camps are kind of down this right-hand side. And so they're getting deeper and deeper. Happy to go on adventures and maybe even take a trade with Nika with Trixtank being behind him.
Yeah, a pluck onto Nika would likely force the Fatal Strike defensively. At least able to strip away the blue buff once more. Hex Mambo DPS pretty ridiculous right now. Deathwalker and Dzoni together could do Fire Giant. Just the two of them.
That's true.
I mean, it wouldn't be easy, but if you find a pick onto Nika, it's doable, and the Oni Warriors need to play aware of that. Any individual pick now, where that portion of the game could result in the largest neutral objective falling down. Oni Warriors, it's all about pacing it out, finding some farm. A couple of picks really could help, but who's going to be the progenitor of it? It's just NeilMah really with the hard CC. Otherwise, I mean, a stun from range from Dardez is only going to be followed up by Dardez. QvoFred only has damage in the kit, doesn't really facilitate the rest of his team, and damaged junglers from behind are bad. That's the issue we had seen from Camazotz way back when. You fall behind and you're not one-shotting anymore, what's the point? Cliodhna, essentially in the same spot.
Really feel, though, that Hex Mambo have good control of the game in terms of, I don't want to see them group up for team fights. Because if they do that, I think that gives Warriors a bit of a window back in this if a fight goes well. They can just keep splitting the map the way they are doing and allow Dzoni to just roam around, find the picks, and then open a window for more farm, more stolen buffs. Sonic Boom didn't connect there with Vote, who just walks away after the dash back to the safety of his tier 1 tower. Sonic Boom will be called on cooldown now. But can Warriors use that information to their advantage?
I don't know. I mean, you could try and catch Dzoni in the jungle, I suppose, but he still has beads. I mean, the only advantage the Oni Warriors get from Sonic Boom being down is, hey, we're not going to get Sonic Boom.
This is an FG. Look at this. Look at that rotation from Mambo. All of them are here already.
Yeah, but Vote on the way back to a base. Should be able to get there soon. The Oni Warriors have to slow it down. You can't leave it to a coin toss. You have to get in there and stop Mambo.
Well, Neil's going to try and look for it if he can with Nika, but it's not going to be an option for them. Neil now zoned out by Zyrhoes' house. And then the all-in engage onto Neil's there. He won't be able to leap over the wall, but he will get around the corner. But Johnny's fists are too powerful for Maui to survive, and now it's onto a tier 1 in mid.
So you're telling me it's an ahead Dzoni on Mercury, one of his signature picks, has got the rage stacked up now, and there's a sprint to facilitate him. So he's got haste auto attacks, chasing low HP targets and lifesteal. There's no answer to the Mercury. It's got to be a triple bomb situation with QvoFred ulting from a distance as well, because if really Dzoni closes gap on anybody, his lifesteal beats out.
Look at what Mambo do, though. They keep the map split. They've got right-hand side Deathwalker keeping pressure on Nika, 3 in mid, and that's leaving Dzoni all the time in the world to push down towers in the left.
Got him.
Cubo trying to defend mid lane. does get hit by the Wild Hunt from Echrome. It's not enough to kill him, though, but it will be a TKO as he falls back to base. Now, Mambo rotates to the right, and it's poor old Nika again. Will this be 0-4 is the question. Trick's going to look for the pluck if he can, but he's got to watch the rotation around the back from Dardez, who gets a good 3-man stun. But Dardez has to be careful of Dzoni, who was waiting there with a Sonic Boom too. Mambo now take the tier 2 on the right-hand side and can look towards the speed buff next.
Man, Oni Warriors are just getting corralled on the map. They can't line up a defense. Hex Mambo spreading them thin and separating them everywhere. The Oni Warriors finally get a bit of a breather. Nika survives by the skin of his teeth. And Hex Mambo will go ahead and head back. Then watch the item purchase tab. I mean, this is going to be a massive power spike for just about everyone. A couple of picks, a couple of towers, tier 2s as well. In a situation that was already looking bleak for the SPL team, only continues to get worse. So much time left on this Fire Giant power play at that. Hex Mambo could regroup and push down both towers. You called for a split push. I tend to agree. And it doesn't even necessarily matter who the split is. Generally in a situation like this, it's 4-1, have Dzoni act as solo agent.
Oh, yeah.
It could be anybody. Deathwalker has enough threat in his build, in the damage, that he could do it on his own. Or even Echrome, to a certain extent, could do it on his own. The Oni Warriors, they don't win any 1v1s right now. It's all about finding farm, and there's none to be had.
Well, if you're just tuning in today, Oni Warriors versus Hex Mambo, winner of this best of 5 is going to the World Championships next week in Texas. The loser of this set is not eliminated. They have a match against the Scarabs, and based on how Game 3 is going alone here, it could be Oni Warriors and Scarabs scrapping it out tomorrow for that final spot at the World Championships, with Mambo going there.
Hex Mambo in a good position now to start really priming the path. Good ultimate from the Cupid, catches 2.
Beats down on Zyrhoes at the tail end of that feels a love too. Deathwalker a little bit awkward going through that middle lane, but he'll be fine. The Phoenix is still alive, however, as Hex Mambo fall back with Zyrhoes at half health here. It feels like they want to just make sure they resustain, use that Fire Giant buff for a second or two. Still got about a minute left on that, I want to say, at the moment, but not a whole lot left to take other than a Phoenix Siege.
No, and no lifesteal in the build for Zero, so it is just Fire Giant
He's
resustaining
got a
him.
house too, though.
He's got a house. It'll help out a little bit. Slowly, and it is slow. Zero's resustained back now to about 80%.
I'd rather...
Hex Mambo, I think you could still push, regroup.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think you really need to wait too much, but
Maybe the
they play
dangerous
clinical. They play slow. They're not going to let the Oni Warriors get a free one.
I want to say some of that is definitely down to Zyrhoes. Like, my beads are down. I'm at half
We're
health.
done.
I am not fighting. If you guys fight and lose, I will shout and scream. And then we may end up, in a worse situation than we currently are, which is great at the moment because the lead is continuing to grow. 17,000 gold in 23 minutes. An actual clinic from Mambo. What do you change if you're Warriors next game? Because I'll be honest, we're already turning our attention there right now.
Yeah, QvoFred has just got to find a pick that can keep up with Dzoni because, again, it is Dzoni who separates the entirety of the map. The bleed came from solo. That's where it starts entirely.
So isn't that Nika's fault then? I'm not really blaming Nika, I'm just saying,
I mean, you could put Nika on like a Jormungandr or a Jingchen or Sun Wukong and just have him stand there and say, hey, I'll survive the 2v1.
But I'm not going to be as influential.
But I'm not going to be influential, and it will be a slower bleed, but it'll still continue to happen. I think it's got to be jungle presence. QvoFred, if he doesn't want to match what Johnny's doing in the solo, has to do something in duo or in mid or around the objective because allowing it to just happen.
Take the Mercury away, ban it, pick it. No?
I mean, Cuvo can play Mercury.
Yeah.
I don't think that you want Cuvo on the Mercury. It's not one of his, #1 picks.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like how Warriors are playing through, but we've definitely seen Cuvo on it through the years. 100%. So now, what do we do if you're Warriors? Do you defend the FG? Well, at the moment, it's 3 of them on the left-hand side just scrapping for farm. And I'll be honest, Deathwalker's over there, and I don't think the 3 of them could kill him if they wanted to. The rest of the Mambos are now over on the right-hand side, looking for their second FG of the game. And this is really a tale of can they catch Deathwalker, because Kivo's going to look for it for a second. But his teammates aren't interested, and the klaxon sounds of the FG falling. And it's back to Phoenix defense we go.
That has got to be one of the most disheartening damage checks I've ever seen. QvoFred throws out the flickering visions, didn't see the HP bar move, and then a full 3-stack disengage. If this game were even halfway remotely even, that's a free pick. Deathwalker is so far out of position on his own. But because of his lead, because of the itemization, I think you're right. Not only could they not kill him, I think he might take that 1v3.
I think he could potentially kill one, I agree. Now we see the split from Mambo again. Trebuchet on the left-hand side being led down by Deathwalker. Dzoni in the middle area, happy to swing to the right-hand side if required. Trixtank going to lead his carries on the right-hand side. And just wait, be patient, allow Deathwalker to get to that left-hand Phoenix and find out who turns up. It's going to be QvoFred that does, but he's losing this trade so far. Aegis and Sonic Boom used by Dzoni, all focus on QvoFred, who falls. Deathwalker tanked up the entirety of that Phoenix, and now it's a 4v5.
What a well-executed siege. That is beautiful from Deathwalker and Dzoni together. QvoFred can't be predicting that, and there's no counterplay once you've already used the Aegis. Just a sitting duck. Nearly returns the damage enough that Nika could have rotated through and turned it around, but it just happens way too quick. Left side Phoenix falls, and Mambo's not letting off the gas.
Dardez looking for a good ultimate if he can to get the damage onto Chrome and zone him away. Deathwalker in there again. The regen coming through. Has to drop the Phoenix. Dzoni gets the kill on Dardez. Soon afterwards, the chase is now on to Neil, who'll buy a bit of time. A shutdown as we do get a second kill of the game there. Nika finds one, but now it's only Vote up against 4 members of Mambo. We're going to a game 4 match point with Mambo just 1 game away from making it to SWC in place of the Oni Warriors.
Hex Mambo burn it quickly, and it's a concise battle through and through. Keep it interesting with some damage, but the Titan will not survive, not for a moment longer. It is just all soul lane pressure. Deathwalker with a 4-level lead will control the map. Dzoni given a 4-level lead will control the map, and that's exactly what happens. The Oni Warriors need to pick a lane to play through and do exactly that. You can either alleviate that pressure, play the 2v2 in solo, or play elsewhere. But just allowing Hex Mambo to execute on their plan without instilling one of your own, that's a recipe for disaster.
Honestly, the word choice I can really give that was absolute clinic, because that's exactly what it was for the Mambo there. Now 1 game away. You were expecting this today, though. You told me Oni Warriors 3-0, no problem.
I was an SPL believer. I thought we put them like in the league because they're like a tier above.
Don't start that drama. Of course they're a tier above. They played through and qualified. You know, at the end of the day, they made their way in, but now their back is up against the wall. They have to win 2 back-to-back. Otherwise, tomorrow it's them versus Scarabs. One of those teams won't make Worlds and join the Valkyries watching from home.
That's so tough. Who would have expected so many SCC teams not only to be in a position to get through, but to have already done it?
Everyone's skill level just seems to step up this time of year when Worlds is around. After the break, we'll find out if the Warriors can pull it back to a 2-2 and take us to a game 5, or will Mambo march on to Worlds? Coming up after the break.
Round 1. DJ Dez versus the obstacles of life. Fight.
Hex Mambo now officially just one game away from going to the SMITE World Championship quarterfinals. My goodness, if you had told me at the beginning of today that would be the case, I don't know, I probably believed you. They're playing some pretty good SMITE here this weekend. Oni Warriors, though, they're a resilient team. We'll see if they can send us on to a Game 5. We'll break down exactly what happens in Game 3 in just a moment. But I got to tell you about the SWC Digital Loot Pack that's available in-game right now, celebrating, of course, our winners from Season 9 of the SMITE, or Season 8, rather, of the SMITE Pro League, the Atlantis Leviathans and the Atlantis Leviathans Gilgamesh skin, alongside some other awesome skins. Available right now in the SWC Digital Loot Pack. Some awesome skins will certainly make your gameplay look better one way or another. Let's talk a bit about exactly what happened, though, in game number 3 here, because I'm thinking this is an opportunity for the Warriors to bounce back. They stumble a bit, and now's the time where they find their footing. Not the case. We'll see what Trelly really has to say about it as he joins me one more time.
At least
one more time to break down game 3. You know, Trelly, I think the Mercury and the synergy on the right side of the map, the solo lane side of the map, really jump-started this Hex Mambo composition.
Yeah, I think step number 1, Nika goes teleport over beads, which in this case probably has to. You're going to lose a lot of farm if you don't. But because of that, Dzoni has so much opportunity to send the Sonic Boom right into that lane, set up for Deathwalker, kind of like this. Even if you see it coming, it does not matter. You're going to get ran down, and you're going to get first blooded. Once that happens, Dzoni, and more specifically Deathwalker, get to own the map. I mean, at one point, he's 4 levels up. It's just such a difficult play to try to make, because if you're using your one form of CC immunity on the Sonic Boom, you don't have anything for the rest of the CC that comes through. And after that, like I said, they get to run the map. Of course, Dzoni gets credit for most kills, but farm-wise, Absolutely, like Deathwalker's running the game. He just had so much levels on everyone else.
Yep.
It didn't seem like the Oni Warriors really were able to step up and fight anything. If you look at the damage again, it wasn't like Zyrhoes and Echrome were absolutely popping off. The Oni Warriors just didn't want to step up to any of these fights.
Well, Zyrhoes again didn't do much until this fight right here. He'll add a double at the end of the game on the Baba Yaga. I believe this fight was just enough to outdamage Trixtank this game, but going into that fight, it was actually dangerously close because, again, it was another fantastic game from Trixtank on this Sobek. You know, it's an interesting role player type mentality for Zyrhoes where he's able to sit in lane. So he does outdamage Trixtank by you know, just over 1,000, almost 1,500 damage. Lower damage numbers just in general here in this game, though, so it's less egregious than what was game 1. But Zyrhoes doesn't have to do much, right? I mean, I feel like that whether it's been the Baba Yaga here in game 3 or Chronos in games of past, hanging out in lane and farming up while Dzoni roams the map and makes things happen. Any mid laner would love to do that, right? And then is there for some wave pressure and maybe damage later on in the game. This now raises, I think, a lot of difficulty, Trelly, for the Oni Warriors and picks and bans specifically, which we'll find out their draft strategy for Game 4. Because Mercury has been a problem, Hebo's been a problem, now Baba Yaga and Chronos, even though lower damage numbers have been a problem. Sobek for Trixtank is a pick that has caused some issues as well. The Oni Warriors in a really awkward spot, where you've got to win 2 straight, which they're more than capable of doing. I wouldn't be surprised if we go to a Game 5. But as far as draft adjustments, there are a lot of picks that you probably don't want to ban because they leave some really good stuff open. For now, it's the Mercury, the Fafnir, and the Daji, which I think in my mind, all 3 make some sense.
Yeah, I think so as well. Especially if the Oni Warriors grabbed Ama here, that'd be a really strong start to this game. Just because, you know, you take away the Mercury, I think Dzoni is able to pull off what he just did in that last game. The same style of way if Deathwalker has the freedom he does. It's not going to be the call, though. They want that Cernunnos, which does, of course, leave that Ama open. That Deathwalker could very easily grab again. I don't see a reason why Mambo wouldn't. It's just the Mercury isn't the priority pick, right? They don't pick it top 3. They're picking it towards the bottom. Dzoni will play whatever he wants. I think that his god pool is so diverse. It's really just that safety that Deathwalker has that they're trying to play through. They want to camp Nika, and they want to force him onto something campable. In this case, he's got plenty of options. I'd be trying to grab Nika, maybe the Guan Yu. He doesn't have a great matchup into the Ama, but it is a lot safer than the picks of past. Of course, the Achilles, I doubt that's coming back. He had a fantastic damage performance, but the fact that he was 4 levels behind just means it's so difficult for him to get anything rolling.
1-0-3 for Deathwalker on the Amaterasu in Game 3. Looked good, followed up on a lot of the pressure that Dzoni brought to that side of the map. Will not be a solo lane pick, we assume, for the Oni Warriors in their first 3.
Oh, man.
Pele, Maui, alongside Cern. Now, this shows you that, you know, Dzoni really wanted this pick in the sense that I think the Oni Warriors probably would have banned Hebo. They already banned out Mercury, but so Hebo probably would have taken a ban in the second wave here. And that'll open it up. And caused a lot of issues earlier on when we saw this Hebo. Oni Warriors didn't quite have an answer for it then. Just drafting it earlier on here, Trilly, is there still enough available? I mean, you have a mid laner still to go and a solo laner still to go for the Oni Warriors. Are you changing your mind on some of those picks now with the Hebo on the other side?
I mean, whatever the Oni Warriors are drafting for Nika has to be something that's diving this Hebo, because you're not really winning the 1v1 versus Ama. She kind of just runs around and farms. That's the way Deathwalker plays Smite. He wants to be 2 levels ahead of you by the time you even realize what's going on. I'm thinking you're drafting to help your team. And in this case, who's been hard carrying these games away? Who's been doing all the damage and getting credit for all the kills? That's been Dzoni on this Hebo. So Nika needs to go something that's got good dive. Again, the Guan Yu could be the play. They haven't first picked it in a while. I don't think that it has the greatest time laning against Ama, but I don't think you can really comfortably draft for lane matchups when you know you're going to be getting ganked by the Hebo as is. You got to pick something that can, number 1, live that gank, and number 2, dive the Hebo again. So I still think the Guan could be an option, and Mambo are smart. They're banning out these burst mages with range, something that can stop Hebo from closing that gap. The Scylla and the Agni, they do that quite well.
Maui was Neil's pick. In game 3, a 0-2-2 game. We've seen some Atlas games from Neil here as well. So I don't feel strongly one way or another about the NeilMah Maui. I do think it has some good potential, but have not seen it just yet. Lost in the final game of the set against the Jade Dragons at Phase 3 playoffs, and then again just now to Hex Mambo. Do like, QvoFred, I think it's something the casters talked about during the game itself. I think giving something to Qvo that he can find a bit more consistent pressure on is going to be very important. Had a good KDA on Pele in game 2 of this set, 3-1 and 3. That did not convert into a win. One on Najan has just been banned out ever since. Hex Mambo learned their lesson. On that one, Mage is banned out across the board. So the flexibility of both Zyrhoes and Dardez going to come into question here. There is a Chronos available.
They didn't ban it.
They did not ban it.
They banned a Merlin that he hasn't even
Did
played
ban
in this
the Merlin. Unconcerned about about the Chronos, I guess.
You know what would be interesting? I mean, it doesn't have a great matchup into Pele, and I doubt when Worlds is on the line, Zyrhoes goes to the Nuwa, but that is a pick that he's liked a lot in the SEC. I figured that's what was going to happen. I mean, he's kind of cracked the code. He'll say, hey, I'll get poly shots, I'll take the Phoenixes for you guys, I'll take the towers. Johnny's going to do the damage.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe this is my fault. I'm zooming in too much on the damage numbers that the mid laner is doing and not enough on the structure damage numbers that Zyrhoes has been doing. Because honestly, I think the last siege of game 3 was a great example where Johnny ults under a Phoenix with Deathwalker. They deal with it and they get it done.
Right.
And in the meantime, Zyrhoes is in mid farming up the Phoenix. Then does fight after the fact, gets the double kill there. But the initial wave is Johnny and Deathwalker most of the time, and Zyrhoes is, look, he's played the Chronos a few times this weekend. It's found some wins. And Hex Mambo now playing with a bit of flexibility. Don't need to win this one, just need to win one out of the next 2. Unfortunately for the Oni Warriors, a bit of a tighter leash. They've got to win 2 straight. Now, not out of the tournament, not out of Worlds if you don't win this set, but you'll go on to play Solar Scarabs tomorrow.
That's what I was thinking too. I was just thinking in my head, I was like, there's got to be a pick in Nika's repertoire that can survive the Hebo gank.
That had some flourish on it.
Yeah, I had to. I had to make sure I pronounced it as well as possible. That survives the Hebo gank but doesn't let Ama free farm, and Xing Chen fills that perfectly. And
why were we who was talking about X-Ball for Dardez recently?
That was me. Well, yeah, I brought up Benny's tweet about how.
Oh, that's what it was. I was like, why did I think about this recently? So we assume this is mid lane X-Ball, right? I guess Cern could also go there, but
they're interchangeable. But Dardez has played it before, so I'm thinking probably in mid.
Double Guardian, double Hunter plus Pele. It's a tried and true composition for the Oni Warriors, Trailer, one that has found plenty of wins throughout Season 9.
Certainly has. And if Johnny's looking to try and camp Deathwalker again, Xing Chen is not where you're going to find those cringe ganks. He has 2 leaps to try and juke your water spout and crushing wave. He's got the CC immunity in his ult that is channeled. It takes a while. He's not going to be getting hit by that dazzling offensive. It's still possible. You can force those ganks, but I'm thinking that does mean Johnny has to look elsewhere to find the damage. And you got 2 hunters to deal with. Late game, the Oni Warriors probably feeling pretty confident about this one if they can immune that crushing wave or stay away from it.
Yeah, look, I think this Oni Warriors team has had players that have gone through the throes of battle with one another. We have seen some long, contentious 5-game sets with all of the play, heck, even against each other in tournaments of past. So a game 4, a must-win game 4, no stranger to this Oni Warriors team or any of the players that are on it. I don't want the storyline to get lost on me here. I mean, this is crazy. Hex Mambo, I mean, they are a team that in the past has beaten an SPL team in sets, but it was a previous iteration of the Solar Scarabs, and they beat this iteration of the Solar Scarabs earlier in the weekend. And now they're on the verge of beating the Oni Warriors to send themselves to Worlds. I don't think anyone would have been surprised if Hex Mambo made it, but the fashion that they're doing it right now, if they win here in Game 4, hyper impressive, Trelly. We've talked a bit about what we want to see the Oni Warriors do. What do you think some avenues to victory are for this Hex Mambo team in Game 4?
I mean, Johnny's going to have to get active as he has been doing on the Hebo. He has his squishy targets that he can look for. Again, I'm not really feeling the solo lane camp this time. I think Nika's going to be just fine sitting underneath that tower. So you've got the Pele, the Cern, and the X-Ball. Those are some avenues you can definitely look to try and find some aggression with your Crushing Wave. Try and get that Hebo online early on, and then your late game looks a lot better. It's still these double hunters you want to try and limit, and I think Mambo know that.
How nervous are you?
Me? I'm not playing. I'm
Oh,
not
I'm
nervous
terrified.
at all.
Oh, God. Should I not be?
No,
I need to talk to somebody.
this is a very
about that.
low stake. We already have our ticket to Worlds. We're good, man.
That's true. I'm going to be sleeping here on Tuesday night so I can make it to Worlds. It's Oni Warriors, Hex Mambo, Game 4. Call them Amaterasu because they're both dazzling and offensive. It's Hindu Man and Mifflin on the cast.
Get out with those throws, like that's disgusting. I hated it. Welcome back to Game 4. Don't be too stressed just yet. Do you really think I'd put myself on a cast that doesn't go to a Game 5, Miff?
Yeah? No?
We'll find out.
Okay, all right.
And so you guys at home, thanks for tuning in if you're watching along on SMITE or on YouTube too, or if you're watching on Hazer's channel or Warcheese channel, or all the other people that are currently restreaming. I think Zap is restreaming it too.
Are you calling
However,
out all our content thieves?
if none of them are actually listening to our comms live, don't listen to them because they suck. That's my safety net, you see.
Okay.
You know? Got it. Into game we go. Forget. You see.
Nobody's safe.
No, never. I've got a lot of, it's saved up. It's pent up aggression that I've not had for a while,
Yeah, we got to get you at least one cast a year or every 4 months to vent the toxicity, I suppose.
Thank you. That's exactly why I still do it. And honestly, if I'm being truthful, give me a Game 4 where we get a close game, Myth, because
give me a close game.
Darn it. It's been a ridiculous one side of the fair, either one way or the other with the seesaw battle. This time, though, Neil and Trix are going to trade out caps. Trix is going to get the purple of the Oni Warriors, and NeilMah is not going to get the purple unless Echrome does something crazy. He's holding time.
What?
Okay.
Maybe reset it next time, Just wait. You already won. Trixtank already got the purple. Echrome didn't need to risk it.
Yeah, strangest tale of a size, but it's all even, One for one. The only difference is Trix has a purple and Neil didn't pick it up.
But Neil also got the smalls, so even smaller win for Trixtank.
See what you did there. But pressure is actually
Trixtank
going to be in
didn't get the
favor
smalls.
of Vote and Neil in that dual lane for the time being. And straight away, Johnny's in the solo lane once more. NeilMah will go back and pick up the purple as the pressure starts to roll through on the duo side. QvoFred, meanwhile, Johnny in the right-hand side. We saw him do this in the Hebo in Game 2, where he just focused his attention to picking up farm with Deathwalker early on.
Yeah, I suppose if you're concerned about the 2v2 in mid, and you should be, if your mid laner is Chronos and the enemy has a Hunter and Pele, playing around Deathwalker is certainly safe, but it does leave a lot of neutral farm on the table for the Oni Warriors. Both mid camps should likely go their way if they play around it. Just fight wherever Johnny decides to show up at, and you are favoring the Oni Warriors at this phase of the game. But when I think of double Hunter compositions, Hindu, I think late game scalers, right? Sure. Let's just get to late. One of you is going to build crit, the other one's going to build shred, and you're both going to benefit. When I think of late game scalers, though, Chronos Habois, I'm thinking that's pretty difficult to beat. So the Oni Warriors likely have the onus to play through the early.
Interesting. Because of the Cernunnos being a little bit earlier game focused?
The Kern's a little bit earlier. The Shiba's certainly better in the early than Chronos is, but how does the late game combo look for Hex Mambo? It's Water Spout, Water Cannon. I don't care if you hit crit autos, you can't do it while you're airborne, and maybe some poly procs as well. I think that Habois as an assassin in that role just has a really good matchup in a Hunters.
That's fair. I mean, one thing about the Xbalanque that people don't talk enough about, in my opinion, is how much comms clutter it can do with the Darkest of Nights. Johnny under great pressure, actually. The up-down caused a bit more problem than bargained for. Luckily enough, the minion wave just turned up in time there. But all the while, left-hand side, you can see Dardez and NeilMah combining to roll the pressure onto that red buff and look for a cheeky steal onto the purple. Won't be confirmed this time because Trixtank had the Hand of the Gods available.
Yeah, so even just getting the Hand of the Gods off of Trix is pretty valuable for Neil. You don't want the support to have the luxury of heading back to base and be able to sell it. A little bit of gold back in pocket always helps out getting that Gauntlet of Thebes stacked up early. Look at the difference between Neil and Trixtank, though. Meditation in the Relic slot. Very likely we see both of these upgraded very early on, but Cloak of the Ascetic can just really change up the team fights. It's not all about the heal, it's about the cooldown reduction. Just giving over so many additional abilities in some of these small skirmishes.
Really excited to see how this one pans out, though, because I'm looking for the Warriors to step up and get the game by the scruff of the neck a little bit more. And QvoFred on the Pele is someone that can definitely do that in the early stages of the game. We saw it earlier on in this set between the two. Trixtank going to find a freeze on Neil. Echrome not really with the follow-up damage. Will get aggressive on Trix and pull him back in again. Good poke, not enough to force him out of lane. Trix will use the meditation, however, to just top himself back up and keep the pressure rolling.
Yeah, Sentinel's gift as well should be able to help him with that resustain, so long as he's not the one last hitting. Won't be last hitting anything if you're back in base, so Echrome just going to get a bit of solo farm here. I suppose fine. Trixtank not really in a position where he's desperate to tick over to level 5. Shards of Ice, for the most part, just a little bit of additional damage or just some CC immunity in the kit. Dardez, though, should be concerned. Luckily for him, Dzoni no blink, so not a whole lot of risk here, but Water Spout, Crushing Wave, could just do it.
Yeah, just going to be respectful of the range and at least use your range to your advantage as Dardez. Obviously, the Darkest of Nights mentioned earlier, but it does give that range advantage in those fights
Massive.
too. And people really underestimate just how in range they can be of those abilities. And against a Hebo that's looking for that Water Spout, he's going to be able to trade out some damage there and maybe cause some problems. This time round, though, Hex Mambo on scene for the red buff earlier. NeilMah still trying to contest, will landfall it into his clutches, but he won't be able to secure it on his own. Still trying to clear it, but patience from Mambo, really, to find time to secure it and get the freeze off from Trixtank and deny Neil the steal.
NeilMah is willing to break his own arm to get into that red buff. Trading out the ultimate, you lose a lot of your ability to initiate fights, but because he's got the level lead still, the risk of stealing it would have been slowing down the Chronos. I like the idea, but it feels like burning Chronos' beads with someone else nearby could have been just as valuable, if not more so. An opportunistic play from NeilMah, a bit overzealous, I think, but nothing ventured, nothing gained, and nothing lost this time.
Well, QvoFred just on the right-hand side strip away the blue buff from Hex Mambo's jungle and from that Amaterasu. And that's just going to put Dzoni a little bit further behind, or at least trying to keep him honest for now. He's working on that Book of Toth and has completed it, but needs those stacks as well. QvoFred's gank potential, realistically, we looking mid, we looking duo here. Solo doesn't feel like it's a really good endeavor with a Jing 10 as your matchup in lane. It's going to be very hard to find a kill there.
It would be pretty difficult. Jing Chen can force the dazzling offensive every time. Might make it a bit easier for QvoFred to close gap, but otherwise, I just really got to think fighting a Hebo in the early game, just find him in the jungle, that feels great. Zyrhoes as well, a pretty decent target. We've seen Ymir's really struggle up against these very mobile assassins, so if QvoFred can find him, maybe pathing through the jungle, that's one way in. Unfortunately, Heimdall is the safest hunter in the game. Just has so many ways to deal with CC immunity on the dash, Gallarhorn to immune the knockup, and then just a global teleport with the Bifrost. Means that QvoFred probably won't be headed that way. So it's got to be any of those other two targets.
Neil heading back to his own half of the map after staying aggressive on the left-hand side of this map consistently. Oracle's going to go the way. Dzoni might get caught there on the angle by QvoFred, but a ward will give him some vision to path back to the red buff. But it does give Dardez the option to get those left-hand harpies and keep the pressure rolling in the mid lane. No surprises to see no kills at the moment. I'm expecting Mambo to just farm for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no reason for them to do anything else. They have just got such a strong late game composition, and one that they have got a ton of experience playing throughout the regular phase.
My concern
Pressure's there.
That was game one, right? And in game one, it didn't go well for them in that situation.
But that's because there was so much pressure for the Oni Warriors, and they're starting to build some up now, but look at the farm. Hex Mambo is not suffering. They're even slightly ahead.
Well, left-hand side, purple buff invade with 3 Tricks and Echrome there on defense as Dardez gets left 1v1 in mid lane.
Big whiff.
He's going to survive at the tail end of this. Dzoni going to commit and find the kill, but he'll trade his life in doing so. Good worthwhile or no?
Well, you got first blood, so worthwhile, I think. Maybe not necessary. That whiffed water cannon, that really cost him. Had he just been a bit slower on it, use the water carpet first, probably gets in range without having to trade out, but once you're there, you have to be concerned about a counter rotation from QvoFred. You don't have eyes on the Pele. It's likely that she's going to be able to counter gank you regardless, so I like the idea of Dzoni saying, I'll trade out. Worst case, I get first blood, and it's returned to Dardez.
Yeah.
And he gets exactly that.
I mean, the trade-out is Cuvo gets a lead because Johnny's dead, and meanwhile Zyrhoes gets a lead because Dardez is dead, if anything, across the map, and that's the level discrepancy you see there. Nika, though, did a pretty good job in the solo lane so far on this Jing 10. Got a little bit of support with QvoFred in the early game, stealing away the blue buff, has allowed him to not be focused as much. And then I guess with Dzoni splitting the wave too, it's where that lead is developed.
Yeah, and it's exactly what we talked about at the tail end of that game. If you don't want QvoFred helping out Nika, and you're worried that Dzoni's going to do to him what he did with Deathwalker in the previous match, put him on one of these safest gods in the game. Xing Chen's about as safe as it gets. Double leap, CC immunity, HP 5, very difficult to poke out.
But still very useful in team fights, unlike some of the other names of gods you suggested.
Agreed. Yeah. That ability to just go in and burn beads and be a massive disruption factor should help out the Oni Warriors, given the opportunity to rotate out. But so far, every game this set, even the one the Oni Warriors had won, was essentially dictated before Soul Laners were allowed to rotate out. It's those first couple rotations and neutral objectives that I'm really keeping my eyes on.
Both dual lane hunters going for crit options this game. Dardez in the mid lane has Devour's Gauntlets online. Looks like he's going in for some penetration up next, or maybe a chins. So might just be going for the full brute damage option, just to have, like you said, the varying crit versus pen options.
Yeah, if you both go crit, Spectral Armor just ruins your entire day. So having one go down the other tree could even be Executioner, so that both QvoFred and Vote benefit from that penetration. Could be the way in. Kin size in first slot certainly fine as well, so you can't really go wrong.
Oh, Deathwalker's in a world of hurt and pinned in place thanks to the help of some minions too. Nika and Cuvo combine. Turnaround is fair play, says Cuvo and Nika, towards Hex Mambo solo laner. As the left-hand side of the map now, you can see Dzoni trying to find some action, but NeilMah is around and delaying backs and also making sure the Vote is relatively safe in his lane.
Yeah, now Deathwalker, with teleport, should be able to get back to lane pretty easily. You're not sacrificing too much farm. It's what can you do in the time that he's not on the map. Greater Scorpion invade, force a fight around the Chronos, who is incredibly weak at this point. Pretty decent. No fight to be had, so it's just free farm. Over to the Oni Warriors. This could be a game that falls into a similar pace to game one.
Fight in the duo lane between the two. A great bees exchange from Vote, and Echrome will escape immediately using the Bifrost back to safety. But Relic used from Vote, both ultimates exchanged. Small win for Echrome, although Echrome may have to base a little bit earlier than that of Vote.
Yeah, needs to get out of there. Another reason Heimdall is so difficult to gank, though, and why he might be willing to stick around right now, is that when you have that first ability out, you have massive vision. You can see into the jungle, essentially, so you don't need to worry about rotations. And with Vote already using all of his resources, it's pretty unlikely that he falls down in the 1v1 so long as he plays safe. What Vote could do is try and just zone him out, but Devour's Gauntlet's already done its work, and Echrome healthy again.
Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, you can see Cuvo just continuing to roll the pressure through. We saw this happen earlier. When they got the kill on the solo lane earlier, it's really unfortunate. It was just pre-10 minutes. If it was a few seconds later, that Pyromancer was available, as we saw the action here. Neil, once again, bit of a dangerous territory here. He is on the Maui, though, with plenty of escapability, but he's taking a lot of free poke damage, causing a lot of attention for himself. Has to watch that health bar a little bit more poignantly.
And you see that combo there, the freeze and a water spout. Knockups are the only form of CC in SMITE that cannot be DR'd. So if the CC starts with Trixtank, you just have to eat the entire duration of it every single time, so long as Dzoni is the follow-up. That's scary stuff. And even already, NeilMah, it's seeing a lot of damage. Dzoni's already starting to get a good deal of itemization behind him. Hasn't finished up the Book of Thoth just yet, but Divine Ruin getting its value.
I will say the one thing we're not seeing Dzoni do in this Hebo, this game that we did in the last time he played this in the series, was look towards these purple invades consistently. If anything, it's been the Warriors that have been a bit more aggressive on this left-hand side of the map. NeilMah looking at the red buff invades, the purple soon after. Dzoni's not found the farm that he once did in the previous set.
But you got to think as well about the mental stack the Oni Warriors are going through right
true.
now. You look at the gold
do or
lead,
die,
you're thinking
really,
to yourself, look, Zyrhoes is scaling incredibly hard. Dzoni's scaling really hard. We're really worried about that. The gold lead hasn't extended so much. We've invaded a ton, but haven't quite been able to find that foothold. Situations like this, with your back against the wall in a best-of-5 series, could tend to lead to mistakes. If the Oni Warriors get nervous now and start just grouping up and forcing Gold Fury fights without entirely thinking them through, Hex Mambo certainly an adept team at finding that punchback. So I like to see this. The Oni Warriors still keeping their head above water, keeping it calm, not really forcing these unneeded risks.
Yeah, I will say with the amount of damage dealers they've got on this left-hand side of the map here, either side could very quickly take down a Fury at this stage of the game. So both the supports, both the teams just need to keep good vision around this Gold Fury, because it will be moments with it going down, especially Jabalonke Cernunnos for me, a little bit more poignant than that of Chronos and the Heimdall in the early game, I want to say. But purple buff spawning, red buff spawning for the Warriors right now, as Nika is just trying to protect his trebuchet and keep the pressure rolling on the solo lane.
We're going to hit an inflection point very shortly. I'd say it's around 4th item where Zyrhoes is going to have equivalent value, if not greater, to his direct counterpart Dardez. So for now, the Oni Warriors, if they fight around mid, should have the advantage. Instead, it's rotations towards solo once more. Surprised that Dzoni is willing to look towards that blue buff so consistently. It's pretty difficult to invade against these two.
Yeah, a bit of a damage check coming out there from Dzoni you saw in lane against Nika, just with that water spout and go, damage check, how we doing? And with the build that Nika's gone for here, that Pythax piece does have a bit of health on it, so it will keep him topped up a little bit. But it's more for me the sustain that you're going to get from that item, not just for you, but for your teammates as well.
Yeah, the aura lifesteal for everybody nearby, as well as just the HP 5 and kit. He's feeling pretty decent about it. And with Breastplate of Valor in second slot, not only is it just more CDR, but by synergy of passive, so long as Nika is applying damage to anything, be it a minion, a camp, a buff, or an enemy god, he keeps his passive stacked up, keeps sustaining as well. So I like how he's really built out. But build can't help you if you're not at the fight. The Pyromancer, it's needing some help.
And it's going to be going down relatively soon. Just Dzoni and Zyrhoes on a Deathwalker, zoning away, creating a distraction around the Greater Scorpion there. Small mistake from Warriors to allow it to slip.
Yeah, just weren't quite ready for it. Maybe it was on the back. Nika had just TP back to lane. Hex Mambo take every small opportunity, and they run with it. Now, Gold Fury, the only POI on the map. Oni Warriors nearby could pull it out, but Vote's so low, there's no way they stick around for this fight.
No, not at the moment. Vote will just clear the wave out, resustain the seasons more than likely. He's still working towards his next item, more than likely the Executioner here. Same can be said for Echrome at the moment, who's just taken his trip back to base. Has his Aegis already online at level 14, and the Executioner is now complete. Small power spike that maybe they can look to play around.
Yeah, it could be. If you can catch out Vote on his back, that'd be phenomenal.
Oh,
Instead, it's Gold Fury.
Pulled.
It's fast.
The Warriors and Trix can only really look for a cheeky sort of steal if he can. Instead, the wall for an attempted reset won't happen. So Pyro to Mambo, Gold Fury to Warriors. Warriors come out on top overall.
Yeah, Dzoni just on the wrong side of the map to contest that one was actually confirming their own blue buff there. So the Oni Warriors,
oh, we saw that Ymir base, I think, and I think Echrome needs to know he's got NeilMah now rotating into the lane. Has the Bifrost pulled out of the Bifrost for the time being. Echrome trying to get back to it, and the damage is solid. Not enough for a kill yet, but Echrome not out of danger. Landfall is available for Maui if he wants to go for it. Won't find it. The ultimate used, followed by the damage from the Wild Hunt, but just in time, Dzoni blinks on scene, destroys Vote, and forces Neil to his tier 1 tower. Just a little delay from the Warriors there. They could have found the kill, and now they're on the run. Dardez and Qvo both now being chased down. Bit of peel option available for him, though, with just that knock-up coming through from QvoFred, but a huge pick for Dzoni on the left-hand side.
So much respect for Echrome for standing his ground there as well. So easy to fall in the trapping of, I need to escape. This is a bad situation. I've already used my relics.
He's got no relics. Well, he does have his relics. He's only the shell at this stage at the moment. Will leap over the wall, try and bite him. Oh, the head fake! But he went back over anyway, and now he's trapped in a pit with 4. What can the rest of his team do with that 4-man rotation? No, not a whole lot. Deathwalker's a little bit greedy on this right-hand side. Does have his ultimate available. Needs to be careful because actually he's going to rotate between the middle tier 1 and tier 2 tower back to his team. He might need some help, but this could be actually turn into a bait because the rest of the Mambo are on the way. But Trix, rather than get more aggressive, plays the peel option and allows his solo laner to escape.
The pathing there from Deathwalker is so clean as well.
Yeah.
QvoFred was certain that it was going to turn around that corner. Volcanic Lightning to close gap, hits air, has to blink forward, loses not only his ultimate, but his initiation relic as well.
And that's mental damage as well. That's what Amaterasu does, really. It's just mental damage of not being able to kill it.
And mental damage is a legitimate conversation that Hex Mambo have been having since Game 0. We got the pre-game interview, and they wouldn't be quiet about it. And now, it's starting to stack up. This is a team, the Oni Warriors, considered one of the favorites in this tournament, struggling now against the SEC representative on game or set point, rather. Tough stuff. Oni Warriors need to see something go in.
So winner of this best of 5 goes on to Worlds. And there's 4 teams already at the World Championships that'll be watching on, discussing who do they select. The Kings, who won the tournament, have the best option for themselves here of who they want to choose first. I don't know if it's the Mambo right now. I don't.
And I can't believe we're even talking about it.
Chrome might be in trouble here. It could be Neil getting baited again because Johnny's around the corner and Neil getting aggressive, looking for the pick on Chrome. Watch out for Dzoni. Vote's not seeing it either.
Again?
Vote will feel it though as Dzoni hits the back of his head. The Darkest of Nights will buy him time. Dzoni can just walk this down with speed buff. 1 spout should be enough. All the while, Neil is going to get soloed down by Echrome by the split difference. And just the timing caused the biggest mistake there for the Warriors.
It's just such a safe pick. Heimdall is so difficult to shut down. but the Oni Warriors keep jamming their head into that wall. Now it's QvoFred got out.
Well, he's got no life, so he's got no health left as Cuvo will ult back to his tier 2 tower for safety. Echrome, though, can continue this push going, take a tier 1. All the while, Nika once again just uses his ult on cooldown to secure this blue buff. Maybe not this time, though. Might have been a mistake there. Has to use the leap instead. Hex Mambo, though, now on a tier 2 tower on the left-hand side, and there is no response available from the Warriors at the moment. Zyrhoes now versus Dardez in mid in a 1v1.
No way.
Cancelled on a 1v1 because Johnny's on scene again. Speed buff still in tow. Has to watch out for Cuvo. Didn't know Cuvo was there. Maybe Johnny dies for that, unless Zyrhoes can help him. The stun's good, but it's not enough to persuade him. Blinking him from Nika, who gets frozen by Trix. Zyrhoes gets kill on Fred, and Johnny survives with his life.
Just an absolutely miserable series of events for the Oni Warriors. Every time they are tantalizingly close to securing one of these kills, it's Johnny. In left, in mid, he's everywhere on the map. He is doing so much on this late game hyper carry jungle.
He's level 19. We mentioned it in the previous game. 19 minutes in. And realistically, it's only been the last couple of minutes where he's just rotated around the map and found kills for his team. But my oh my, were they impactful. They've just swung this game now once again for Oni Warriors to be on the back foot. No towers in the left-hand lane for Vote. Look at him, he's having to back where his tier 2 tower would be because he can't step forward without any vision.
And with Gold Fury spawning up, it's generally that left side that you start to retreat towards, nothing to run back to. If Hex Mambo decide to start the fight.
Dude, we're going to see
Fury.
Scarabs versus Warriors. Are you serious?
Don't call it this early. We don't know. Double Hunter draft.
I told you it was 5 games.
Okay.
I'm doing that
building
bit,
intrigue.
you know? I'm building that bit, you know?
Understood.
Come on.
You really wrote this one up then, because I'm getting convinced.
I have seen some terrible throws in my lifetime of Smite. Some terrible throws. This isn't up there yet as a terrible throw if they were to throw, because it's only a 4K differential between the two. But maybe it does get that way. The Oni Warriors fans are definitely hoping for that, that's for sure.
9,000 experience, nearly 5,000 gold. Hex Mambo, they're in a really good spot. It's all impact experience at that. We just now hit our first 20.
And the gank attempt on Walker happens again. The ultimate once again used. Great ult from Neil, though, but a great wall from Trix to prevent the follow-up damage. Deathwalker survives, limps back away, all the while Mambo exploit the option of the rotation right by taking a tier 1 tower mid. And look at where Johnny and Echrome are going right now, already to the Primal Fury that Chrome has just been whistling down in his own, also at level 19.
Not much that anybody on the Oni Warriors can do about this one. They've got the sound cue. They realize there's at least one on the Gold Fury as of now. Maybe a rotation towards Pyromancer to catch Hex Mambo on the reset. Just not in the cards. It's a full reset across the board. Hex Mambo get away with another free victory on map. Could desync these neutrals. Hex Mambo, regroup, pull a Pyro. I said it in game 2, I said it in game 3. Any fight that happens, it just favors Mambo
This
now.
Pyro could be important, though. Trixtank and Zyrhoes on scene. A fight here, a mistake here could allow Warriors back into it. Warriors, though, playing very safe, worried about the aggression from Mambo. They don't know on the map that 3 members of them weren't even in the area to contest that and take down the Pyromancer. Warriors just trying to find the scraps of farm where they can, and Nika could be the next one to feel the brunt of Mambo as 4 members head to the right-hand side.
Echrome's on this side, and when ADCs rotate to fire, it's simple. That's an indication. Fire Giant, and it's going quick.
It is, but Neil's on scene, so is Nika. Nika blinks in early, looks for his ultimate to force some beads and does so. Landfall pulls it in, but Mambo get the Fire Giant.
Healthy.
Trixtank not really under too much pressure just yet, as a good ultimate out from Deathwalker will stop QvoFred getting to the backline. Freeze connects onto Vote, forcing his beads defensively, but Vote versus Zyrhoes is still going on. All the while, Johnny is just chasing people down. They find Dardez. Nika should be soon to fall. Maybe minions get that one. QvoFred won't die to minions, though it'll be to Hebo. 8-2. FG on 5 members of the Hex Mambo. And if you're a Warriors fan right now, you might be wanting to set your alarm clock for the set against Scarabs tomorrow.
Mid-Phoenix should fall down here. No way for the Oni Warriors to fight back into this one. It was just too healthy from Hex Mambo. Burned the Fire Giant too fast. The Oni Warriors decide,
Can they end?
Look, we can't let it happen. I don't think they end here.
They thought for a second. I saw that look on their faces. Instead, taking a bit of a safer but slightly dangerous option with a backdoor attempt from the left-hand Phoenix. Deathwalker will take a ton of damage. Not enough just yet to kill him. Who's going to get the aggro after the fact? It was Echrome, but it still won't matter. Left-hand Phoenix now down at 23 minutes in this game.
And NeilMah is wet paper as well. He steps up, takes one water cannon, and said, well, maybe I'm not a tank. Maybe I should have bought some magic defense a little bit earlier. I mean, this is long shot odds, Hindu. If there's a Game 5 in the cards, as you so say, I would love to see how we get there. The hero's journey would have to happen twice.
Okay, well, we all start rooting for Warriors now then, because, you know, if they go off script here, Mambo are not playing next year. I'm just going to say it.
They better win this Worlds, huh?
They better, because, yeah, I mean, they're ruining the script right now. We're supposed to go to a Game 5. I mean, Mambo should still go to Worlds, right? But we're going to take it to a Game 5 first of all.
Okay.
Goodness gracious.
Well, now it's a simple path for Hex Mambo. Only one line, really, for them to work through, and it's through that right-hand side. Tier 1 and Tier 2, a foregone conclusion. Oni Warriors will not step up to those. There's absolutely no reason to do it. Fighting inside your Phoenix, not easy, but necessary, I think. But in that entire time that Hex Mambo can reset, start to work their way across the map, the relic landscape graveyard that Hex Mambo was having to contend with after Fire Giant will have time to regenerate, about half a minute on about all of them for Hex Mambo. Whereas the Oni Warriors, some of those relics are already starting to come back up, largely in sync, but the team with a lead just benefits more.
Again, another clinical performance from Mambo. I say that in one breath, but then I'm like, well, if we look back at how this game went, Warriors had a lot of small windows to find victory, but every time they tried, Johnny was there again, and Johnny is stepping up. Darkest of Nights used by Dardez as Qvo tried to jump into the backside there and cause some problems. Now he's going to get zoned away. Still has a bit of immunity available to him as Deathwalker now going to push them back with his ultimate too. And the pulling onto Zyrhoes is good. The rewind will come through. Trixtank tanking up the Phoenix. No damage on that yet. Neil now falls. Echrome and Zyrhoes start to whittle down the Phoenix health bar to its final moment of death. And where do Mambo go now? Fire Giant still for another minute. Do they go in and end with that base coming through from Deathwalker? That could be a teleport in. Keep an eye on the man in a suit coming back into the fray. Doesn't have his ultimate available, but maybe the one to tank up this Titan.
Trixtank very low, but resustains quickly. QvoFred acting as
He's
front
gonna die
line.
so quick! There's no chance for the Warriors to defend! They're out! They're going back into play with Scarabs tomorrow.
They're not out.
And I mean, they're out today. And Hex Mambo are going to the World Championships as a European representative, maybe to join Ravens. It's going to be 2 SEC teams at Worlds, guaranteed now.
That is absolutely ridiculous. Hex Mambo clearly gracious in their victory as
Dude,
well.
that
It
suit
looks
is OP.
expected. If that's me, I'm popping off. I'm sweating. If you've seen the adapting gif, that's it. But these guys,
I think it's for the bid. Definitely like, no, gotta keep the suit clean, you know. Congratulations between the boys there. There's Reels hugging it out with Deathwalker 2 at the tail end of that. Great performance from them overall throughout that entire set. Oni Warriors, after game 1, it just went downhill.
yeah, they just couldn't figure out an answer to Hex Mambo's drafts. Addressing the Sobek maybe here or there, maybe controlling some of Johnny's selections, but the Habois didn't really seem like that much of a downgrade. Zero's allowed to play as Chronos once more. I mean, once the siege starts, if you allow Hex Mambo with this Chronos to be in a siege position, I don't think I've ever seen them fumble from there. It is just so simple to get the Chronos into a tower and polyproc it, and then back up, and then do it again, and then the tower's gone. Hex Mambo, I mean, they've seen the code. They cracked it. They know how to play.
And they're going to crack it without dropping a set too, right? Because they didn't actually lose a single one of these games. So they lost games, but they didn't lose a set. So they went through the upper bracket to get through, don't have to go into tomorrow, where we're going to see a scrappy battle between 2 SEC teams and 2 SPL teams. Wasn't expected to see that. I am done talking, though. It's time for the lovely man on the desk, Trelly, and that other idiot, Dave, to take us away with what's going on next. Yeah, you give me bad throws, I'll give you one back.
I gave you a great throw. I said you were dazzling.
Yet offensive.
And offensive. He is offensive. That was dazzling and offensive all at once.
I felt dazzled.
I was going to say, I agree with the first bit for sure there, Trelly. My goodness. So 2 SEC teams going to Worlds confirmed. One of them, Hex Mambo. One of them will be either Eldritch Hounds or Highland Ravens, who are playing tomorrow. So what's the closest we've come to this before was, what, Sanguine in season, what was that, 6?
It was a bit ago.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
Where Sanguine was able to do it. Because remember, and I don't think this is slighted us, we all came into this weekend thinking that we would have some close games, but in reality, we were expecting an SPL sweep.
No, remember what you asked me on Waiting Room? I said Mambo would make it.
Did you?
Yep. Miff said SPL sweep twice. I said Mambo would make it.
You said Mambo would make it out, so you're feeling vindicated right now. Yep. Now, we knew Hex Mambo far and away capable of beating SPL teams, because again, we've seen it in the past, but the question always was, can they do it over the course of a weekend? Can they do it in best of fives? When the stakes are at their highest, how is this Hex Mambo team going to look? And they looked incredible today. They dropped one single game in a best of 5. They dropped one game in a best of 3 to the Solar Scarabs. They've now taken down back-to-back SPL teams. They're going to Worlds, Trelly. And this Hex Mambo team have such a unique mindset about it.
Yep.
I think they're still going to go to Worlds feeling like there's nothing to lose and playing unhinged, cool, calm, and collected. And I think it's caught some teams off guard. It's been a blast to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Hex Mambo, they're sticking around one more weekend at the SMITE World Championship. We'll go over to Hindu man Deathwalker, the man who suited up for the post-game interview.
He is suited up once more, and I guess I want to say, first of all, congratulations on the victory today. You make it to the World Championships. Are you surprised?
Well, first of all, thank you. No, I'm not surprised. And the next stop for me, dry cleaners, Longhorn Steakhouse, and Texas, baby.
I think the only other question I've got is, are you going to wear the same suit? Or are you going to have to get a new suit? Is it like this is the suit we're going to see him in all next weekend now?
This is the suit.
And what about the rest of the team?
I don't know.
Did you lag? Is that what happened there? Sorry, we had a technical pause on stream.
All the process, you know.
Yeah, that's okay. So, talk me through the set. Obviously, game 1, you guys fall down. Composition very similar in a lot of ways. You didn't really vary too many avenues up, but some small adjustments after game 1 came through, and it seemed to just open the door for you guys to take control.
Well, all this team really has to do is download the opponent game 1, and then from then onwards, it's kind of impossible to lose.
Speaking of downloads, I feel like poor old Nika did not enjoy the download that happened in game 3 with Dzoni just sat there in that solo lane. It kind of made life relatively easy for you to just take control of the game.
Oh yeah, I mean, Dzoni figured it out like really fast, you know, that this Achilles, he's going Golden Blade Achilles. He's not that fast. He's not as fast as Amy. He's not that slippery, so he's gonna punish that. And they tried their luck with the Amy. I think they had good ideas. I think they had really good answers. They played really well for the style that I was trying to push. It's just that they were so focused at some point on solo side that they kind of like forgot about duo side, I think. So.
Yeah, the rest of the map started to fall apart as well. My final question for you before I let you go, because I know you're someone that'll give me something good in terms of an answer here. Who do you want to call you out to play at Worlds? Because obviously the top 4 SPL teams have already qualified to the World Championships. Who are you calling out?
I said even before this, Camelot Kings. This answer already popped up. It's Camelot Kings.
You want Camelot Kings bad? Round 1, game 1 at Worlds?
Camelot Kings for sure.
You've heard it here first. Will the Kings respond tomorrow by picking Mambo? We'll find out after broadcast tomorrow. Thank you for joining me, Deathwalker. Congratulations. Enjoy your steakhouse and your dry cleaning bill. We'll see you all after the break. No, we won't go to Dave again. My bad, I'm an idiot. Go back to Dave. There we go.
No, all right, so there was a lot of America in that answer. There was dry cleaners. We're talking about bills. There's plenty of those.
Yep.
Longhorn Steakhouse in Texas. That's about as America as it gets. And Deathwalker's hanging out in the U.S. for one week longer. Going to Worlds. And that's a really good conversation, I think, that Hindu brings up there. Because, say, between Oni Warriors and Solar Scarabs, they qualify. Are they going to get called out before Hex Mambo now? In theory, they've now lost games to Hex Mambo. Are you picking an Oni Warriors or a Solar Scarab before you're picking a Hex Mambo? That would have been a ridiculous question, I think, going into this weekend, and I think it's a real one now.
Well, I think what Deathwalker just did was genius because it puts the Kings in a position where they either don't pick them, right, and they're just like, oh, we weren't going to pick you anyways. We wanted someone else, or they do, and Deathwalker could say he asked for. You know, like I think he covered his bases by calling out the Kings.
They play the mental game so well; it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think they're. I think what they've. I don't think the Kings are gonna, waver at that option. You know, like I think that they're sitting at home in first seed. You know, they're not too worried. But I think Deathwalker covered his bases by just saying, "Yeah, we want the first seed guys."
That's right.
Shows confidence, and whether they pick him or not, he's going to Worlds.
Yeah, could happen. Anyway, what happens here in game 4, Trelly, because we only go 4, Hex Mambo. Look miraculous once again. This Hebo pick caused issues. Remember, I was asking about the Oni Warriors, and there were some of these niche picks that were just causing problems. Can you take all of them away? Do you want to take all of them away? Johnny's Daji was getting banned out a lot. The Oni Warriors did not want to ban or pick Hebo. in the first wave of things and left it open for Dzoni again. And how many times did we see opportunities for the Oni Warriors to make plays, get kills, and then a water spout, a water hands, just flip it around. The knock up, the knock aside, just change everything. It's the Dzoni show here in Game 4, 7-1-1.
Oh, yeah.
On the Hebo. I don't know. I'm having such a hard time breaking this one down because I just want to look forward to tomorrow and who's picking who.
Yep.
And now we know that 2 SEC teams are going to make it. We've got an SEC battle for Worlds, an SPL battle for Worlds.
Zyrhoes did more structure damage than damage. We have the confirmation.
We have confirmation.
10,000 structure damage on the Chronos, 6,000 player damage. We know what it was picked for.
That's the tech.
And I will say, during picks and bans, I said this Mercury is not a priority pick like the Oni Warriors think it is. They banned out the Mercury. That really wasn't what was the big issue. I think Deathwalker having the freedom on Ama means that Dzoni can go whatever he wants, reap the benefits of that extra farm, and then pop off. It's also, I don't have the answers for Hebo. I'm going to be honest. I don't know what they should have picked to keep that Hebo from popping off, but it just seems like Dzoni was built different today.
I was going to say, that feels like, when I talk about a playmaking jungler, right, that's what I mean. It's a god that has those types of abilities in the kit. The Crushing Wave obviously can one-shot, but can also reposition you. The immunity that provides, the knockups. I mean, all the nuance to that kit allows crazy plays by really good players. And that's exactly what Dzoni got done. What a day of SPL action, SWC action. And we'll look back at exactly how that's impacted things. Do not scratch your eyes. Hex Mambo indeed, the first team from Group B to qualify for the SMITE World Championship, and they do it in convincing 3-1 fashion. And now, you know what this is it's the meme of like the Grim Reaper walking down the hallway and the doors are left open. Those 2 open doors are the teams that are now fighting for the final spot in the SMITE World Championship. The Oni Warriors and the Solar Scarabs, they both got beaten by Hex Mambo. God, my heart is torn in that matchup. I love both of those teams, Oni Warriors and Solar Scarabs. Very unfortunate that only one of them can make it, but that is the reality of this weekend and the reality of what Hex Mambo leaves in their wake. So match 10, that'll be our final match of the weekend, if I remember correctly. But definitely one of the 2 tomorrow. Best of 5 to determine who goes to Worlds here from Group B between the Oni Warriors and the Solar Scarabs. That's crazy. Over in Group A, it's a similar story. We only have 1 match left to play here this weekend, Trelly. But the way things have worked out over on that side of things, a bit flip-flopped, as it's the SEC teams that are still fighting. That'll be our first match of the day tomorrow, match number 9, and a best of 5, Hounds versus Ravens to join the Titans from Group A.
And it's just going to be 2 incredible matchups.
They've been playing well, too, both of those teams.
It's going to be – you just can't miss it. I mean, I'm so excited for it tomorrow. I'm talking I want to repeat what you said. I don't even want to keep breaking down because I just want to get to what's next, right? It's just – it stinks that only 2 of them get to make it, but in all honesty, there's no favorites here. I just want who's going to give us the best matchups at Worlds, and I think whoever wins these upcoming tomorrow are definitely going to give us the best quarterfinals matchups we could ask for.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you're hoping that the 4 Friday matches that we get at Worlds are as close as possible, that's the point of this weekend. Is obviously, teams can get hot at the right time, and teams can have bad tournaments at the wrong time. But ultimately, Hex Mambo just look like the most dominant team from Group B. As of right now, they look like the team that's going to give us the best quarterfinal match from that group.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be there. And I wonder which team is going to end up picking them. Remember, we're also doing a post-game show, a pick-em show, where the captains of the 4 quarterfinal teams will be here. And they're going to call out their opponents, and we'll know the quarterfinal matchups after our day tomorrow. Oh, here's the good news, Trelly. We can sleep, and it'll be tomorrow, and we'll be here. We'll be ready for the games. I won't be sleeping at the studio this time, but maybe a bit later on here this weekend. A great day of SMITE World Championship group action. Unfortunately, it's come to a close. Good news, 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. We'll be right back at it. 2 spots remaining, 4 teams left to play. My name is Dolson. That's Trelly. On behalf of us, the other casters, everyone back in production, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.